coming to you live here from Lake Nakuru, one of the Rift Valley lakes located in an elevation of 1,754 meters or 5,755 feet. That's like way higher than I thought existed in the world, above sea level. It lies in the south of Nakuru, in the Rift Valley of Kenya, and it's protected by the Lake Nakuru National Park. A lot of algae there, which attracts flamingos, warthogs, baboons, and rhinos. From what I'm skimming here. What is up, everybody? We're here today with episode number 44. Same numbers, both hands this time. 44 of the PondCast. We got some very, very massive news for you today. News that I think we've been waiting for the entirety of the year, and so now we're finally getting all of them all in one go, which is convenient. I'm, of course, your host, Yaku of Duzaku. With me today is la votente de las encuestas que disfruta de los rollos, like _VIP, and as always, we are being produced by Dvorka Jadladek Kitore Nipotirje Buje Streamlabov 16 squats in Seki. Kuro of the Kuros. How we all doing?
What's up, Yaku? What's up? It's great to be here. Great to be back once again for another podcast. And as you mentioned, just like, I feel like it happened even last week as well. I feel like once we wrap up the podcast, next day, all
literally, that's what it happened. You know, that wouldn't have been the case if we had podcasts on Thursday. But, you know.
True.
Hashtag blame Rex.
True. Just saying. But yeah, it's happened a couple of times now, Yaku, where it's like we wrap up the podcast and like the next day or the day after, like bam, big news. It's like, okay.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about either Thursday morning or Wednesday evening, depending on the time zone, but that's apparently when everybody likes to announce your stuff.
For sure. So, as you mentioned, there's a lot to dig into this.
For the current schedule we have for podcasts, probably works out better because then we have a couple of days to really digest the news.
Yeah, to kind of let it marinate, let it sink in, and then we kind of give our take and enjoy the meat.
Yeah, nice and tender.
Exactly. Speaking of enjoying the meat, up first we do have our interview with Fantasy. I say our interview, GLHF. Zombie Gob, of course, has returned with another interview. I believe we did miss out on an interview last week. Again, Zombie Gob, I believe, was on vacation, was traveling to Korea and to Japan, but now has returned. And I believe this might even be, you can correct me if I'm wrong, the final Korean interview. Is it?
You are, in fact, wrong. I believe there are at least 2 that off the top of my head that I can remember that we're going to be waiting for, and I believe closer to possibly 3 or 4, but yeah, we do have a couple more down the pipeline when it comes to the Korean interviews, and of course I believe we also have a couple more EU interviews to go as well, right. Or Home Start Cup interviews to go.
Well, there you go. So we are going to be jumping into the fantasy interview here. Again, this was, of course, translated by Maddox, brought to you by Zombie and GLHF. And we are, as Yaku mentioned, kind of rounding down here towards the finale of said interviews. At one point, we're going to run into a situation where we're not going to be able to talk about interviews anymore.
But you know what? By that point, first episode of the documentary is out.
True. Let's go.
It's probably going to take more time than
that. But yeah, we do have an interview here with Fantasy. Fantasy, of course, is another StarCraft legend. I say StarCraft, really a Brood War legend, and StarCraft 2 as well.
Both, really, yeah. Mm-hmm. His influence, obviously, in both games has been immense. They went over his history, joining SKT and stuff like that, and it was during the time when he was talking about his time at SKT and joining SKT as well. If for some reason it just popped back in my head, it reminded me of the Sue documentary from Panda Bear Me, where they were talking about where it was Sue specifically talking about how Fantasy was kind of like everybody's big brother in SK Telecom for a while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was interesting. Like the interview itself was decently lengthy, but it did feel, to me at least, a little bit short in some ways. I personally, I wasn't really expecting this, but I felt like we got this was like to me an innovation interview. Like, as in, I don't know if you noticed, but a lot of the responses. were they were very short, very brief. There wasn't a lot of elaboration for a lot of this, which felt kind of weird because
Yeah,
I feel like we've been building up to fantasy a
that.
little bit. You spoke about Sue, Crank as well. Remember, he also spoke about
Yep.
fantasy. Like there were a lot of there were a lot of interviews leading up to this about ex SKT players that had their own stories about the team house and their own stories about how fantasy would often support them and often give them advice, and they would often lean on fantasy for that sort of thing, for that kind of support. But we didn't delve into that kind of period in time. It feels like almost at all from fantasy. Like it was again like, just really brief and
It's to the
kind of
point
moved on.
with fantasy, yeah.
Yeah, which caught me off guard. I'm not
Which
gonna
is-
lie. Like yeah.
Yeah, which I definitely know what you mean. There was one part in particular where
Mm.
I kind of wish we got a little bit more out of him, but he
Mm.
kind of gave his short answer was his decision after coming back from the military, his decision to play in StarCraft 2 as opposed to in Brood War, because as Fantasy mentioned, or as no, I think Zombie Grub pointed it out in this interview, and Fantasy also reiterated. By the time Fantasy came back from the military, Brood War was already going through its revival. It was already coming back and becoming a big esport in Korea. And I remember back at the time, Fantasy, when he came back from the military, he came back at around the same time as 4GG. And it kind of surprised a lot of people that 4GG just said that he wanted to compete in Brood War, whereas Fantasy wanted to compete in StarCraft 2, which a lot of people thought would have been the opposite. So I know he mentioned at some point where he's like, oh yeah, I like being aggressive as Terran in StarCraft 2 compared to Brood War, but I do kind of wish that he elaborated a bit more on that, why StarCraft 2 instead of Brood War, which is what he had historically had more success in the past.
100%, 100%. I personally, I feel like the interview felt me a little bit wanting, more so than some of the others. But part of it, as you mentioned, is probably fantasy. It did feel like I want to say around halfway through the interview, like fantasy was giving a little bit more when it comes to expanding upon certain things, 100%. But especially like the early questions that were provided, typically asking fantasy about certain tournament results or certain or his introduction to StarCraft and getting into SKT and specifically talking about certain results. It was very brief. It'd be things like, oh, how do you feel like your match against Jadong? He'd be like, oh, I don't have very fond memories. and that's it. Or it'd be like, oh,
That's
like how'd you feel about or like how'd you feel about this first time you competed in this tournament? He's like, oh, I remember the line. It was like, oh, I have memories that I will cherish forever. That's it. It's like
I remember that was a crowd.
It was like are you gonna talk about that a little bit, or I don't know. But yeah, it was very, very short, very brief, and it can be difficult, especially if you're working through a translator, to try to get a little bit more out of them. But yeah, I do feel like it was, especially for the first half of the interview, it was just very, very short, very brief. It's like, oh yes, I enjoyed this, or yes, like it was just, yeah, very brief answers. I say halfway through, I did find it most interesting. I think they spoke about the transition from Brood War into SC2. That's where I think he had a little bit more to say.
Yeah.
Especially during like the hybrid Pro League series, and his thoughts as well about getting out of Brood War and into SC2.
Yeah, I think it was the first one to really bring this up as the first of the Brood War to StarCraft 2 generation who kind of brought up this idea that switching to StarCraft 2 was actually positive for him, not just in the sense that, oh, this is a new game, this is something that this is fresh, this is so on and so forth, but he said that mentally, the switch actually helped him prevent a lot of burnout because he was just grinding away week after week after week in Brood War, not getting a lot of success. But then StarCraft 2 comes out and he's like, okay, I can actually look at this with a fresh new pair of eyes.
Yeah, exactly, right. Which is why, like, that was to me the most interesting part of the interview was him talking and discussing about that transition, how and it's also important to say that he also emphasized how he felt like he was in the minority, where a lot of the Brutal pros they wanted to keep playing Brood War regardless, like that was their game and that's what they were used to, and StarCraft is very different, and a lot of them weren't really too keen at switching and transitioning. But that's also why I think it would have been really important to have delved into his return, because they spoke about it a little bit, but as you mentioned, Fantasy, when he returned from the military, he specifically returned to SE2, right? Like he returned from the military,
Yep.
he competed in SE2. I think he even said as well that he wasn't really he didn't really he enjoyed SE2, wanted to play it, he wanted to compete in it, and he did for like a year. I want to say it was like a year of competing, and it was actually looking. I remember a lot of people.
He was getting pretty good results. He was in GSL
Yeah,
versus the World at one point.
yeah, they were getting hyped. The people were getting hyped, but it only lasted a year, and then he quote unquote retired and switched to Brood War. He switched to Brood War again for a period of time as well, and that's why that
and then
specific
he became a
period
coach,
would have been.
right?
Yeah, and then he became a coach afterwards. But it would have been interesting to have heard about that, right? Specifically about his return to StarCraft 2, his then return back to Brood War, and then into coaching, of course. And we got a little bit of it, but not too much.
Yeah, a little bit of it, especially when they were talking about how he was invited to the Gamers 8 show match and how he himself didn't expect to win at all. Because at that point he hadn't been competing seriously. He'd been a coach. He'd already been coaching for like 3 years at this point, or something like that. Hasn't seriously been going at the ladder or anything like that, but somehow still managed to pull off the victory. Yeah,
that's more modern stuff, right? I think that might be like some of the newer stuff that we've heard in a lot of these interviews, talking about like 2023-ish era of StarCraft. But I feel like Fantasy is a really historic player, and I do think there's definitely that it could have been spoken about. So we got some of it here, but I don't know. For me, it felt like not too much. It felt like Fantasy himself was maybe used to just giving these shorter, briefer answers to questions, and he didn't really get into too much of like any stories or his feelings or his mental state during like early periods. But didn't really get too much of that.
Yeah, would have been cool, definitely. But I do appreciate that Fantasy in this interview, they asked him about the GG timing.
Yeah,
I appreciate that he reminded me of that game versus Sue on King Sejong Station, which came down to literally one Banshee and one Spine Crawler.
Yep.
I literally, after being reminded of that, I looked up the VOD and immediately went back. Also, kind of made me a little bit sad because that was a game that was casted by Moonglade and I believe State. Moonglade and somebody else. So I was like, I miss Moonglade.
Yeah. It's been a long time. So, shout out to Zombigrub for hosting the interview. Shout out to, of course, Fantasy as well for providing feedback. Yep. I think I remember like another moment as well as I was kind of glossing through the interview. I think Zombigrub asked him, or he was asked about like, what were your feelings on Heart of the Swarm? He's like, that's when I got to my success. I think it was pretty good. That's it. Like I think I was pretty successful during that time. Yeah.
I did pretty well back then, didn't I? Yeah, I did.
Yeah, and that's it. It's like any notable like tournaments or results or any feelings about the meta.
That was also the time where he moved from SKT to a foreign team, right? From SKT to Dip Pixels.
Yeah. It's always on this, and again, like especially when it comes to joining foreign teams, it would have also been nice to have heard like his experience there. Like I think the one thing he mentioned about legacy, if you remember, he was speaking on how because he was on a foreign team at that time, he didn't have a lot of practice partners. So he felt like he was struggling a little bit when it came to improving at the meta and keeping up with the meta and all that stuff. That was definitely interesting. But again, that's like a sliver of what we got. About him discussing about being on like a foreign team and leaving like the Kespa like kind of team environments, which he didn't really discuss at all actually. His feelings on leaving like the Kespa team environment and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot to get into, but but regardless, yes, we do have the Fantasy interview. Do recommend checking it out.
Yeah, do recommend checking it out to everybody. Shout out to, as you were mentioning, Fantasy for giving it, Zombigrub for conducting it, but also shout out to Maddox as he mentioned this is the last interview that he translated for. So I'm not sure if that means that this is the most recent interview that he did, or if that means that the next couple of Korean interviews are going to be ones that are translated by somebody else. But shout out to Maddox, who was also obviously a big part of these Korean interviews so far.
Yeah, I saw the tweet. That's why I'd assumed that maybe this was the final one. But as you mentioned, it could just be this is like the last recorded one, right? Out of the interviews, or as you mentioned, maybe someone else stepped in. But yes,
Mhm.
do check it out. Again, as you mentioned, there's still more interviews to come when it comes to the GLHF series, and that leads us into our next big interview. And I'll be honest, contrasting these two interviews was crazy. Going from one to the other, immediately.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. This interview was
It
amazing. I love the story
the
that it told, like the story that it weaved together, and this
Yep.
is everything that I would want out of an interview with any player. I'll be honest.
Yes. And I also got to say as well, I appreciated that this was in text, so I could actually
Mhm.
read it at my own pace.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
yeah, we were talking about historic players and very storied players for a very, very long time. About 2 weeks ago, we weren't quite able to cover it last podcast, but we're covering it now. Huge interview was conducted by, let me double check this. Your name's in Cyrillic, I apologize. But by Players UA, that's a Ukrainian video game publication, was conducted
Mhm.
with arguably one of the most successful foreign players in all of Brood War, and somebody who has obviously left his mark and had a very, very big impact in both StarCraft 1 and in StarCraft 2,
Mhm.
White Raw. This is as a matter of fact, this was such a huge interview that it had to be a two-parter. Part
Yeah.
one talking about his time as a pro player, and then part two talking more about what he's up to right now, going into some of his volunteering work, and also his plans for the future, and also his work at Twitch.
Yeah. It was a really big, extensive interview, as you mentioned, and again, like when it comes to someone who's a fan of the players and someone who's a fan of a lot of these personalities and figures in the scene, like I feel like this is what you want out of an interview, and it goes into everything. I don't know how much I want to give credit to the interviewee or to the person being interviewed, because it does feel like White Rat, he was again very open and very willing
Mhm.
to just like expand and even just go into some of the finer details. I think what I personally enjoyed was for almost each question he would just go down almost like kind of
Yeah,
like
but he
weaving
didn't
the
need to
story of this
be.
tale,
Yeah,
just recounting events and just engrossing you in his own story.
yeah. Which again, he's a very long and old school player, so
Mhm.
he's got a lot of stories to share and a lot of perspective as well
Mhm.
to share with people.
Yeah, for sure.
I
You on?
From the first part of the interview, one thing that I
Mhm.
especially really appreciated was White Raw kind of contrasting his era back in the day of like the early 2000s compared to modern esports, and how a lot obviously we all know that things have changed quite a bit, but he was able to really go into detail of like how things have kind of changed, what he likes about the current era of esports in general, and things that he thinks are positive developments, things that he thinks are a little bit more of a negative, and stuff like that going on.
Mhm.
Again, really, really well thought out and really well written out as well.
Yeah, definitely. For those who maybe haven't seen the interview, I do recommend reading it yourselves. But quickly, briefly going over it, it goes over his history, getting into gaming, getting into esports, getting into that kind of environment. What I found really fascinating personally is the similarities between his story and a lot of the Koreans, especially when it comes to Korean StarCraft and Brood War. This is something that I've touched on even myself, discussing about what the esports scene or what Brood War was looking like in Latin America. Something that all three seem to have had in common at the time was kind of like economic strife and economic
Yep.
difficulties when
Nobody
it
could
comes
afford
to
their own home computer to play
yes.
games, which is why they went to PC bangs all the time.
Yes.
Or
Yeah,
gaming cafes.
we spoke about the rise of PC bangs in Korea, and as you just mentioned, because of the economic state of Korea at the time, as you mentioned, like personal PCs or PCs at home were a rare thing. So we had these more communal PC bangs rise up and really gain a lot of popularity. Of course, we spoke about it before when it comes to like why specifically StarCraft was more prominent than maybe other games. But similarly, I know in Latin America, very similar as well, where a lot of Latin American countries are not well off financially, and likewise, PC cafes were very much so a very popular thing. Also because of how easy it is to pirate StarCraft and just download it and put it on every single PC. Like it's a very cheap thing, and it's something that a lot of young kids would do after school or even skip school. And similarly, very similar here when it comes to the Ukrainian experience, or at least White Rise
region
experience
overall, I would say, was very much like that in the late 90s, early 2000s. It's why a lot of the big teams for Counter-Strike and for Dota 2 back in the day came about from this region.
Yeah, exactly. It's fascinating how, again, like from my understanding,
I guess back then it wasn't Dota 2; it was Dota 1 back then.
Yeah, and it's fascinating to me just because I feel like, from my understanding, at least when it comes to the West, when it comes to maybe American viewers and fans, or even fans from the UK, or even in other parts of Europe, I don't think like PC bangs and gaming cafes weren't as prevalent. So the idea of that just wasn't as great, and that also meant that because of that, there wasn't that kind of there was less centralization when it comes to like players competing and gaming and that sort of thing.
Exactly. I don't remember if it was who said it. I think Tasteless might have gone into it a little bit during his GLHF interview, and maybe it was this White Raw interview itself where he was mentioning it as well. But I remember somebody kind of saying that in sort of the West, in the US, Canada, Europe, and stuff like that at the time, the gaming experience in the late 90s, early 2000s was all about single player stuff. Console. It was like Nintendo or Sega. If you were some of the few people who owned Sega, all of the big games back then were were the first party single player games that were for those consoles. Multiplayer split screen was a thing, but that was more of like every now and then you get your friends together and you go do a round of Halo or something like that. It took a while for something like Xbox Live to take off, and even then, the multiplayer experience in the West was very, very different compared to CIS or Korea or Latin America, specifically because you're not all in the same room if you're playing, if you're doing it, specifically because it's not like a super competitive thing, and it also, you weren't all in the same room looking over people's shoulder.
I would imagine a big part of that probably was the availability of consoles. I mean, we already spoke up as to why that wasn't as available in Korea. I would imagine similarly in maybe in other countries, maybe not for the same reason. But like even here in Australia, like as you mentioned, like the early 90s and late 90s, early 2000s experience was like you get together with your friends to play, Nintendo, right? To play Nintendo 64,
Mario
to play
Party,
PlayStation. Yeah, and it was Super Smash Brothers, right? You'd come together, you'd play together, you'd go to your neighbors, right? But again, it's very different to like the PC gaming LAN experience, which wasn't as prevalent, which wasn't as necessarily as prevalent. But yeah, it was really cool to hear that from Wyver's experience. Really cool to hear again something very similar where he spoke about how like each city, each town even had their own like PC cafes, had their own like hierarchy where clans, and you'd have like city versus city sort of thing. Everyone would come together after school, they'd play, they'd practice, they'd compete, they'd do their own tournaments, they'd face off against other cities as well. Like it was all very similar, maybe less intense, but all very similar to what we heard from like Korean PC banks as well.
Yeah. Oh, Chad is pointing out that I completely forgot about this because these aren't a thing anymore. Chad is pointing out that arcades used to be a thing back then.
Yeah, true.
And obviously, arcade games, they are different compared to the PC esports and stuff like that. I think the one similarity, or I guess one anecdote that I can remember there, because there is a Singaporean fighting game player who got really good results, ended up going to Evos specifically because he was playing at arcades, and he was like, okay, I don't have a lot of money to spare, so I really just want to get real good so I don't have to spend more money and have more lives when I play Street Fighter or stuff like that.
Yeah,
but other than fighting game cabinets, arcade games didn't really take off in the same way.
Yeah. I guess you're right in saying that, or at least Chat's right in bringing up that, like, I guess arcades were a bigger thing in the West, right? Where that's where a lot of kids would go after school and stuff to play and compete, and that's where you get the
But
fighting
even
games, of
then,
course.
yeah. But even then, it's different, right? Because it's in fighting games, it's you spend money and then you play until you die. Whereas in
Mhm.
PC bongs, it's you spend the same amount of money
Yeah,
and then you get like 1 hour or 2 hours, and you can do
yeah,
whatever you want in those hours.
yeah, for sure. But yeah, so it's really fascinating to hear that from again from the perspective of these Ukrainian cities facing off against each other. You spoke about CS region and in general, and yes, again when it comes to like other countries in said region, facing off against each other, it was really fascinating to hear. It was also fun to hear him talking about how like he would often like skip school, to practice and to compete with his
Yeah,
friends. And it was really fascinating to hear that it was a little bit different because he spoke about how
it
they had their own like routine, and it's not like they would only game 24/7. They would also like go to the gym together and do
yeah.
other things together, and maybe watch VODs or watch replays together as well. But they definitely had that community aspect, and it wasn't just about gaming, but about doing other things as well, which was really fun to hear.
Yeah, they were definitely very bonded together as a team, which I feel like nowadays not as much of the case, but we'll get into that when we talk about some of our roster changes later down the line. But
For sure.
yeah, that's definitely something that's an aspect of early esports that may not be as prevalent nowadays, because obviously the esports back then was very much the Wild West. I mean, White Rob, it was very much a Wild West. So if you had a team, no matter what, you guys have to support each other. Because if you don't, then who knows what's going to happen in the future, right? There's no guarantee that there's going to be another tournament or another qualifier, or there's somebody else who's going to be able to pick you up as a contracted player or anything like that. And that's another really cool story that White Rob was going through in this part one of the interview. Talking about how he kind of had to figure out his own way a lot of time, like how to gather enough money to get a new monitor or get equipment, or how to travel to another city to play in a qualifier where he's not even sure whether or not he's going to be able to do well enough to get back to make up for his investment there. So yeah, really cool anecdotes. If you were ever wondering what the early days of esports was like, that was very much what it was. Very little support from organizations.
Yeah, exactly. They did things, their own way together, and that also kind of strengthened camaraderie, I'm sure, between a lot of the teammates, a lot of figures together, because they would often work together to make that happen, right?
Yeah.
To get someone somewhere, to pull together some resources, to carpool to an event, things of that nature. So yeah, it was really fun to hear that story, of course. And again, as you mentioned, like he would often go into a lot of tournaments. He'd often, again, like add his own experience with those tournaments as well. And yeah, I do feel like the interview just did a really great job at just like at forming this kind of this better idea of what the environment was like back in the day as well. And of course, it culminated into, eventually he spoke about how eventually his family was more accepting of what he was doing when he was representing his nation, when he was representing Ukraine internationally at WCG.
Yeah, which reminded me a little bit of a while back. The Muslim did an interview with... it wasn't StarCraft. No, yeah, it was StarCraft historian.
Yeah,
and he mentioned a similar thing, right? Where he's like, in this early days of esports, people weren't very accepting. I mean, people were very accepting. Like the Muslim school also wasn't very understanding of what he was doing. But then his family would like ring up the school and be like, "Yo, our son is representing the UK right now, so you better watch yourself." And similar thing here as well, where it's like, initially a lot of skepticism, but then once that national pride like came down the line, it was like, oh, I see, you're doing what you have to do.
For sure. There were some great moments in this video as well. I love the moments where, and it really put things into context and at least put a lot of awe into me, I should say, when he spoke about how he traveled to Korea to compete in tournaments and how he beat Slayer's boxer. And it was in the aftermath of that where they went out to get some drinks, where local bars recognize him because I'm sure they were watching, like
Yeah.
they were watching the event. They were
yeah.
watching just because of how widespread Brutal was in Korea back then, and I'm sure a lot of those bars actually were televising that themselves, like at the bar itself. And yeah, like they all recognized him, and bar after bar after bar would recognize him and would just give him like free drinks and to him and his party and stuff like hearing stories like that is just yeah, it's just so. Yeah, it's so fun to hear. Just because, of course, the environment is very different nowadays. But yeah, it's just a fun
It shows
experience
what a
to
big
learn
deal
about.
that was back in the day, being able to beat somebody like Boxer as a foreigner, and how that would gain you so much respect, especially even from the Korean fans to be like,
Yeah,
"Yo, you must be really good."
yeah, but also just widespread uh infamy or fame of just how popular the esport was, right? To have these like random owners of bars recognize you and know you because of that, like that's just so. Yeah, it's just really fun to hear. And overall, like it was a great interview, and I do recommend tuning into it, of course, as well, to hear White Russ' story and how that's changed over time. Of course, that did end up leading into the second part of the interview as well, which I also wasn't too familiar with when it comes to White Russ' involvement when it comes to volunteer work and fundraising. Of course, with everything happening in Ukraine, I know that Wyra has been very
Yeah.
vocal about support on social media, but I didn't know how extensively he was actually like supporting those in need and supporting like those in Ukraine.
Me as well. Like I remember way back about 3 years ago at this point when the war first kicked off. Right, White Raw did have he did make a tweet, and he did make a tweet where it was a photo of, I think it was his old high school or something like that, that just recently got bombed down to rubble. And he was talking about how this is a very real thing and how it really hits very, very close to home. How later down the line, I actually found out much later down the line, I found out that White Raw's own nephew was in the Ukrainian armed forces, and unfortunately didn't make it in the end. But yeah, I'm glad that, and so this kind of opened my eyes a little bit as well, not to the situation itself, but more to White Raw's own personal involvement. I knew he was volunteering, but I didn't realize that it was specifically for getting military equipment to the front lines as quickly as possible.
Yeah, exactly. I had a general idea that, of course, he was fundraising and supporting, but as you mentioned, like I had no idea of the specifics or anything like that. So it was really cool to hear from that perspective and just to be more informed as to what Riot Raw is currently involved in as well. So it was just really fascinating to hear, and it's really also inspiring to hear as well, just how much he has done, how quickly he did kind of take that approach.
How committed he is as well.
Yeah, for sure. So definitely a lot of respect to Wyra for all that he does and for what he continues to do as well, because I believe that of course is continuing.
Yeah, very, very much so. He's still very involved, and they are still fighting over there in Ukraine. And for as long as they're going to continue to fight, I know that White Raw and his organization, or I guess technically he said he didn't. I guess technically he said it wasn't a formal organization or anything, but White Raw, for as long as they are going to continue to fight, White Raw is going to continue to support them.
Well, yeah, I think you touched on something. You touched on something which is what I found really, really fascinating was that he spoke about how, like, once things started, going south, like he was quick to, like, just reach out to his own contacts, network, to his own friends, to people like who can help, who are a lot more like ingrained in certain like aspects, or whether it's like inventory or whether it's military or whatever, and he was able to just get people to work together to provide all of that support. So yeah, it was really it was really just fascinating to hear from that, and really definitely really inspiring to hear from him as well.
There's one little line that he kind of mentioned that took me out of it a little bit, because obviously the interviewer kind of brought up like misinformation and people overseas who might not really know what's going on, who might not really have a clear picture of what's actually going on in Ukraine right now. And so they were talking a little bit about like calling out misinformation and stuff like that. And White Raw had this one line that I'm gonna F3 and look for it right now, because that said, here it is. I think he said something along the lines of, "I'm lucky that I don't have to explain too much to my own followers who are in the StarCraft scene, because StarCraft players tend to be more intellectually developed and mature." And I'm like, feel real good about myself here. Thanks, White.
You're like,
Yeah.
yes, that is me. Let's go.
That's literally me. Thanks, White Raw, for the ego boost.
God damn it, yeah. God
Yeah,
damn it. But you're gonna say, as soon as he said,
I mean-
like, oh, they're a little bit older, they're a little bit more grizzled, it's like,
well, you did say
is
they're
it-
not young kids. I'm like,
Uh-huh.
yeah, ain't that the truth? Ain't that the truth nowadays?
like, no longer young Yaku. Old Yaku. Smurge. But yeah, it was a really in-depth interview. It's really cool to hear. Again, also going over his time at Twitch, going over his time even streaming for the first time and getting into Twitch streaming as well. Again, kind of like a trip down memory lane or down history, really, when it comes to Justin TV. And he spoke about how he was even offered by Own TV at the time to even partner with them. So yeah, just very in-depth going into his history streaming and time working on Twitch.
Also, plans for the future. This was something that kind of excited me quite a bit. White Rock, working on putting together a semi-biographical book about the early days of esports, especially in like the 90s and 2000s.
Yeah. It's I mean, what excites me about that, of course, is that we already got so much out of this interview, and I can't imagine just how much more he has to say and how much more he has to tell. And I'm sure it'll be a very exciting read to be able to hear from his perspective and hear all those stories and to learn from that as well. So I look forward to it. What is also really exciting to hear is that he doesn't just say that, it's something that I want to work on in the future. It sounds like he's already put in a lot of steps into making that a reality, and there's already like a process that's underway for that sort of thing.
Yeah, it sounds like he actually already wrote a lot of it. So
yeah,
it's based on how he described it. It seems like he is in kind of like the final stages of like, rewriting whatever needs to be rewritten, and then just finding a publisher after that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. It's not like these are in the initial inception stages. It feels like there's definitely already, again, some progression when it comes to making that a reality. So look forward to. I'm definitely going to be looking forward to that, and looking forward to hearing more from Myra.
I just scrolled down. I got him mistaken. Apparently, he is already in talks with publishers. It's just putting a business plan for the book together.
Exactly, that's what I mean. Yeah, it's very far along. It's definitely something to look forward to. And yeah, I mean, I think one of my a great way to kind of like cap it off as well was that final story when he spoke about how like he and his team and his friends had like traveled, of course, to an esports event. How afterwards they got drunk, maybe some there was maybe some
like
shenanigans occurring.
Hassle them.
Well, they were hassling some of the other locals. Is a better way of putting it.
True.
And they weren't having any of it. And how like the way to like calm things down to settle the dispute was like, they spoke about how like, we traveled to play StarCraft. They're like, yo, there's a tournament happening going on. Like, you're playing StarCraft. Like, let's go.
What's going on? This sounds cool.
It was just a fun little story to end it off. And again, I'm sure he has many more to tell. So yeah, looking forward to the future book that I'm sure will come out maybe in the near future, maybe in a couple of years. But definitely, I'm sure worth checking out.
Yeah, stay tuned for that.
For sure. And again, I'm sure we didn't do it justice when it comes to just the length of the interview and just how much there's in it.
There's a lot of nitty gritty going down in part 1 and part 2. Both of it, a lot of details. I didn't want to go too in depth because obviously I want people to actually drive clicks to the article itself.
100%.
Read. Don't just rely on streams and whatnot.
Yeah,
read.
Yeah. For sure. It's definitely worth the read. It's a longer interview for sure, but it's definitely worth it in the end. So do check out the interview.
So and it is in a textual interview. So yeah, you can go about it in your own pace.
Exactly. So do recommend it. That leads us into our next set of news here. Something that caught us a little bit, or at least me a little bit off guard, out of left field here after, of course, the announcement of EWC, and we'll be getting into that. We did hear from SOS.
Yes, old mate Dollar O'Dollar did hear about the prize pool at EWC,
Mhm.
and potentially now is looking to throw his hat into the ring to get back to reclaim his old title of the number one earning StarCraft 2 player. Potentially, I mean, we'll see. I mean, we don't really know what was going on behind what motivated SOS to now look for a StarCraft 2 team and to compete in StarCraft 2 professionally.
Mhm.
For the most part, he was semi-retired. I know he was competing a little bit in Brood War for the past year or so, but yeah, I guess recently has decided that he does want to come back into StarCraft 2. Which, you know what? I think we have sort of to thank for that, personally.
Ah, there you go.
If not for sort of getting married, getting all of the other foreign pro gamers coming down, and everybody playing handball, I feel like SOS might not have tried to go back into StarCraft 2.
There you go. Football, by the way, football.
Oh yeah, it was
Soccer.
football, not handball. Yeah, soccer,
Yeah,
not handball. Sometimes
but
they play handball, sometimes they play feetball.
yeah,
What?
I mean,
The ball is there. It's just a different
yeah,
body.
balls are involved. Balls are
Yeah.
involved, and yeah, it's definitely very possible that may have pushed SOS and reminded him like, oh, I'm close to all these people. Like, I want to be a part of this scene again. It's definitely very possible that was a big factor. Of course, I'm sure the announcement of EWC was another big factor as well. But yeah, this came a bit out of left field just because SOS he already returned once and already retired like once
He
again
did
as
his
well.
military service a couple of years back, and then came back, and then
And then left again.
yeah.
For those that are curious, SOS, he's still competing, I want to say last year, February. So it's been just over a year since he stepped away. Of course, that's when he returned again. Remember, he joined like Team NV, like he was playing in some tournaments, but he never quite reached the levels that he was hoping for, that he had in the past, never quite reaching Classic or Hero. So now he's back once again. And I think what I'm excited by is that like hearing this announcement, at least to me, feels like he wants to commit again. He wants to devote his time into practicing, into improving. SOS will get into it later on, but he did actually play in this week's tournament. And this week's on Monday, so already playing in some open cups for the first time in a long time. Fun fact: he forgot how to veto. So we had to go to the veto
Really?
with him and work our way through that.
Right, because I guess a lot of Brute War tournaments they do things like winner's pick, or it's not straight AB
Yeah.
process.
So that was definitely a process to be had there. But yeah, it's great to see him back and excited to see him competing again for sure.
Yeah, this is huge news to every cheesy Protoss player. I know we have a couple in our own clan who are very excited upon hearing this.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
La Cucaracha is back. He never dies, and I'm sure he's looking to not only delve into the big book of Protoss, but also add a couple more pages to it.
Yeah, I would hope so. So exciting stuff here. We'll see if he is able to find a new team. We'll see if he is able to once again devote his time and continue to compete. Only time will tell. We'll see kind of his rate of improvement and how he looks. If you remember, it didn't take Zaun too long at all to actually get back up to a high level. It took maybe 2-3 months. I want to say even maybe 1 to 2 months. It was insane the rate of progression that Zaun had when he returned. We'll see how high SOS can go in a short period of time.
Yeah, it didn't take long for Zaun to get back and be at least a top 10 player in Korea, and I would go so far as to say a top 5 player. It only took a couple of months for that, but I'm sure SOS is also looking to get there quickly as well.
100%. Speaking of other roster changes, we did hear Aragfire. He has since left Alien Esports.
Yeah, a couple of bad news here. For everyone involved, I suppose. Aragfire did mention that he has left. He not only left Alien Esports, but also has not been able to contact the manager and actually hash things out. There were apparently some salary issues going on there, so yeah, not ideal to say the least.
Yeah, this is why, if you recall, when Alien Esports first announced their return, they didn't just announce their return; they also picked up a bunch of players. We were like, "Oh, do we want to calm down a little bit?" To be fair, we said the same thing about Streamer
Yeah.
Zone. If you recall, like we said the same, and that this hasn't happened to Streamer Zone yet. But for a new team to rock up and to very quickly pick up a bunch of players, at times there's a risk that this would happen, where because you suddenly pick up all these players, the salary does add up over time, and it can become a little bit much, especially if there are no stable sponsors for said team.
Yeah, it's getting way too far ahead of yourself as a team owner, which is, it's something that pretty much everybody advises against, but it still happens surprisingly often in esports.
It happened to Team Super. It happened to arguably to Team GP as well. And that's
we'll just
see
in StarCraft.
for sure. So we'll keep an eye on Alien Esports, and we'll see if maybe they're able to return and pay their players. Maybe not. We'll definitely keep you guys updated and posted as to any other future results. But as Yaku just stated, currently it is known that Alien Esports, at least for this month, they haven't paid their players. Plural, not just Fire, but the other players on Alien Esports as well. So we'll keep you guys notified as to what happens there. Potentially all the players leave. Potentially the owner comes back and is able to rectify that. Time will tell.
Time will indeed tell.
He'll let us know.
Exactly. I just looked at the Alien Esports page as well. January 2025, the team was revived with Fire as the first player joining. Well, he's also going to be the first player leaving.
He is. Yes. All right. We should also emphasize that as well. That all the other players did actually leave or most of the other players did leave alongside him. So Inexorable has left the team, Fire and Hydra as well. So the three of them have left the team. And so far, Nikic and P-Power are still on it, but it's also possible that they may have also decided to leave. They just haven't let anyone know.
Yeah.
So we'll keep you guys notified.
Still hashing things out behind the scenes before, potentially making a public announcement.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. With that leads us into our next roster change. That leads us into Classic. Classic joining Team Virtus Pro.
Yeah, leaving Twisted Minds at the start of the year, having his slots filled up by Hero, but now he is able to find a different team. And do not get me wrong, I'm definitely very, very, very happy for Classic. I'm a big Classic fan that he is able to get some support. He will be able to get some support for EWC, but just going into a little bit of what we were talking about earlier from the White Raw interview, it feels like this year we are playing musical chairs a little bit, and because of that, it's harder to be a fan of esports teams in StarCraft 2 now compared to, maybe a couple of years ago where we did have these more long-term contracts where we did know that if a player was signed to a team, they were going to be on that team for quite a while.
Yeah, that's the downside of what's happening right now with EWC, how they are kind of in a way incentivizing teams to pick up players that compete in an esport that is at EWC. But the big problem right now is that for StarCraft 2, we have no confirmation of any future support in future EWCs, right? So because of that, it's more of like a seasonal basis sort of contract, I would imagine, when it comes to staying on, for this season of EWC, and then the teams will wipe their rosters and wait for another announcement, and then if it's another season, then they bring them back, sort of thing.
Yeah. Which, that's just how the structure of EWC incentivizes things, right? I mean, I guess I can't be too mad at the teams for kind of doing what is in their best interest, but when it comes to emotional, what's the word I'm thinking of here? Like emotional, what you call it? Investment. There we go. When it comes to emotional investment, that's hard to do. Which is why right now I would say my emotional investment goes more towards Shopify Rebellion, Basilisk, and Team Vitality. These teams that are still willing to have players on for the long term, as opposed to short term investments here.
I think that's the big thing is
and Team Liquid. That's the fourth one.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing. It gives more credence and I would say it gives more respect to Team Vitality, right? Because Team Vitality,
Hmm.
they're also one of these teams
Yeah,
that did invest because of EWC. That is true. But
they
despite that, we had that announcement at the start of the year, right? How they signed
yeah
Maru for multiple years, right? They had
yeah
the what's the best word to use here, but like they had the faith or
the
even like
faith.
the
Yeah,
devotion to their player, like to be like, hey,
they were
the
committed
respect
to their
even.
players. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like that commitment is something that is more admirable, and yeah, it's definitely something that I appreciate from Team Vitality more so than some of these other teams.
Yeah. It was like I was already a fan of them because obviously I was a fan of Crank and Ryung and whatnot. But
Mhm.
yeah, that announcement they made where they said, yeah, we know there's no news for EWC. We
Mhm.
don't know what the state is. We know that there's no news. We don't know what's going to happen. But we're still going to re sign Maru until 2020, until the end of 2026.
Mhm.
Because we can. Because we're that committed to our guys.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, a lot of respect to Team Vitality for doing that. And when it comes to this announcement, of course, congratulations to Classic for finding a team. I don't think there's any doubt in anyone's mind that Classic would have found a team.
Mhm.
There are other players that are out there that are still looking for teams, and I also imagine they will find them. I'm referring to Gumiho, Showtime, Creator. I think we spoke about them last time. Classic was another one that we did mention last week as well.
Yep.
What I would say, though, my biggest concern about this announcement is Estrella. Um,
Yes.
Specifically, Astray, he hasn't competed in a StarCraft 2 event since the start of the year. Like, he's been
Yep.
very inactive. And now we have our announcement of EWC. So, this is the time where we expect players to return and to get back into form. But we haven't heard anything from Astray. So, personally, as a fan, I'm a little bit
Yeah.
concerned. I don't know whether or not
It
he is going to come back.
Yeah, this feels like it's another piece that kind of feeds into the idea that Estrella may have had a quiet retirement in
Mm,
the past couple of months. Decided to step away, but hasn't really made any public announcements or anything like that, or hasn't really, mentioned what his plans are going to be, either as a competitor or as somebody who's looking to retire, anything like that. So I'm with you there, Light. I'm a little bit concerned. I would like to
mm.
hear from Estrella, but obviously that's. I'm sure he will make an announcement when he is ready to make one.
Yeah, I think the big sign, of course, is going to be, and we'll get into it soon, DreamHack Dallas, right? Like,
Yep.
Stray, he's in the Americas, DreamHack Dallas, it's happening in the Americas. If there's going to be an event that he shows up to and competes in, that should be it. If he doesn't show up to
Yeah,
DreamHack
he doesn't need a
Dallas,
visa, so
exactly,
just needs a
like
plane ticket.
the NA players are the ones that are going to be the easiest to actually go to the event and compete, and then they'll have the least issues when it comes to getting there. So if we don't see Estrella there, then that's when we that's when speculation maybe becomes a little bit more reality at that point. So as a fan,
Hmm.
I'm concerned. I love Estrella, I love seeing him play, I love seeing him compete. I'm a big fan. Hope that this isn't the end of Estrella. Hope that we hear from him soon, coming into the new season of EWC and of 2025.
We're huge Max Angel fans, so here on the
We
channel.
are, Max Angel. He can't just step away into the night.
Exactly.
Okay, there's got to be a finale for him. That can't be how the story ends for Max Angel.
Yeah.
Okay, don't do him like that. God damn it.
He's 2 days. He's
it's-
2 weeks from retirement or something.
Exactly. Yeah, bring him back
He
in. Bring him
needs his
back
big
in.
send off.
He does. Especially considering he went to Korea last year. Remember, he went to
Yeah.
Korea. He got spanked by Trigger, or he got he got whipped into shape by Trigger. Even
Yeah.
like this, he was looking very informed. Remember, even at the start of the year, Mass Coliseum, he beat
Yeah.
Cyril.
Yeah.
He didn't win the series, but he made a series out of it against Cyril. Everyone was very impressed by his play, especially on Amygdala, his macro game. Like, I still remember that series. I still remember that game. Like, I still remember being so impressed by Estrella. Like, he's still a very strong competitor, very much so in form. Hope that wasn't the last we saw of him. Like, I hope we hope we see more of him coming into the year. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, indeed.
For sure.
Jumped a little bit forward there, but you do not fret. We will be going into the announcements later down the line for tournaments. mean,
yeah, they all kind of so some of these news kind of bleed into the other, like into future topics for sure, for sure. Up next, of
it's
course, we do.
foreshadowing.
It
That's
is,
what
it
it
is, it
is.
is, it is foreshadowing. As it leads us into our next final of roster change, we do have Jeshi as well as Lancer joining a new team.
Yeah. Lancer? Oh, right. Lancer is Cyan. Cyan is Lancer. Yes, yes, yes.
Mhm.
Both of them are going to be joining a new team, JDG Esports or JD Gaming.
Mhm.
Wait, JD Gaming Esports?
JTG.
JDG, all right.
Let's go. Yeah, JDG Esports. Yeah.
JDG Esports, yes, has now launched their StarCraft 2 division, and as you mentioned, their inaugural players are going to be Jesha and Cyan.
Hey, I'm already a fan. All right, look, we're back to the 3-letter acronyms. Okay, none of this Virtus Pro.
Well, it's
none of
3-letter
this Team
acronym
Vital-
plus the esports at the end.
Exactly, exactly. Not quite GGG, not quite Good Game Gaming, but this is pretty close. Like JDG,
Juris
mate.
Doctor Gaming. That's what I choose to. That's what I choose to believe the JD stands for.
Let's go. Let's go.
Lawyers.
I'm 100%. I'm ready for it. I'm hyped for it. Really cool to see almost out of nowhere that they step in to support some local talent. So especially because Lancer and Jeshi, they're not the most active players nowadays, but they have started playing in more tournaments recently. I will say that. And to see them join a new team is exciting.
Yeah, it does feel like Jesha and Cyan especially have been a lot more active recently. Have been a lot more active recently. Haven't necessarily been getting big results, but they are playing very, very often in things like team leagues and things like regional events, stuff like that. I was pretty surprised when, like you said, JD did make this announcement that they were starting a StarCraft 2 division, just because they're a relatively new-ish team. I mean, they're not as old or storied as something like IG or Weibo Gaming or stuff like that. They came about in 2017, but historically they've always been focused more on the Riot side of things, right? They focused on League of Legends, and then a little while after that, focused on Valorant. They do have a PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds team, but yeah, their main focus has been on the Riot side of things.
Yeah. So really cool to see them step into the ring. A part of that might also be, Esports World Cup. They are, of course, competing in that as well.
Sense.
So that might be part of the reason, but regardless, really cool to see them specifically support local talent. Is that a sign? Are they willing to sign some of these other big Koreans like a Gumiho, like a Creator, or just their local scene? Yet to be determined. Yeah. But yeah, we'll find out soon, I'm sure.
And I will say that from glossing over the other divisions that JD Gaming has, they have been focused mostly on regional, like Chinese, and a couple of... Wait, let me double check this. Let me double check this so I don't spout misinformation. But I believe they have 1 or 2 Taiwanese players. So yeah, it seems like they are focused mostly on local talent.
Yeah, there we go. So really cool to see them support their local scene. And again, congratulations to both Jeshi and Lancer or Cyan for joining said team.
There have been a couple of Korean players for the League of Legends division, but not for the most part. They've had a lot of roster changes, and the vast majority of them were Chinese. So yeah, maybe they might pick up one Korean player, but we'll see.
There we go. So we'll keep an eye out for some more JDG. I'm already hyped for that. I just like their name.
Apparently the JD stands for Jindong, which, you know what? I'm all for.
Yeah.
It's not quite Juris Doctor. It's not quite my image of a team full of lawyers, but,
There you go.
It's fun to say. I don't know what it means, but it's fun to say.
And that, of course, leads us into something that we've been alluding to here. Is of course, the Esports World Cup announcement for this year for StarCraft 2 for 2025.
And I have to say, Light, I don't remember if it was last week or I don't remember if it was 2 weeks ago, where I said something along the lines of, it's too late at this point to have a circuit. And I stand by that. We're not going to have a full circuit quite like WCS or quite like EPT, but we do have information that a bunch of other tournaments are going to be held, and placements from those tournaments are going to feed in or are going to be awarding slots for the Esports World Cup.
Yes, as you mentioned, it isn't quite the EPT circuit that we have come to know for the past couple of years. It is a little bit different, but they have at least partnered, of course, with these other events. So it all came together here. Of course, everyone was speculating that GSL was returning because I think it was almost a month ago at this point where the Patreon became active again. So it's like, oh, okay, there's a GSL coming. But again, there was no one knew exactly the details of what the GSL would entail, how it ties into EWC, and of course, whether there would even be an event in North America.
Yeah, and I guess before we go into details of the tournaments, we'll just mention what they are. So obviously GSL for Korea, DreamHack Dallas for North America, and Belgium's Elite for Europe. And then 2 slots going to be awarded from GSL, 4 slots from DreamHack Dallas, 1 from Belgium's Elite, and then of course we're going to have Clem being invited as the title defender, and then a bunch of other regional and global straight qualifiers for EWC.
Yes, exactly. I don't think we have details yet as to what those qualifiers will look like. Are they just going to be open brackets? Are they going to be? Is it going to be like a more structured format to the qualifier instead? Is it going to be a proper online broadcast like what we saw from the online regionals that we had in years past? We still don't yet know that for certain, but at least now we are more aware of how the structure is going to look like when it comes to the players going and competing at EWC. So yeah, it's great that we finally got this news. Of course, it is a little bit compact for sure when it comes to everything being announced and everything coming together.
We got 2 months to hold. Wait, yeah, May, June. Yeah, 2 months to hold all of these together. So you know,
it's going to be an intense couple of months for sure. It is going to be intense, but regardless.
Remember when you said that May was going to be a little bit lighter for us?
I mean, it still may be. You know, we're not covering GSL, we're not covering DreamHack Dallas, so we'll see. We'll see what the Ducklings is going to be.
And we'll see if they're open to have community casters for the qualifier EW. Are we? You know?
Yeah, yet to be determined. Determined. But yeah, really cool to see that we finally got the least slot distribution. Now we know what the quote-unquote circuit entails as well when it comes to StarCraft 2, and definitely a lot to look forward to in the coming months for the year.
What's one level below a circuit? A track? Because this is more like a track that we're having this year.
Yeah, like an EWC track, sure. Maybe like a what's a marathon? Is that higher or lower than
marathon?
a circuit?
Wait. If we're talking running specifically, I think a marathon is higher than a circuit.
Okay.
There are half marathons, or there, I think. I was looking into one. They hold one every year here. I was looking into one. They were like, you have to run 20 kilometers in 4 hours. So I was like, you know what? I'm good. Or they say it's like 8 hours to run 20 kilometers. I'm like, I'm good. It took me 1 hour to run 2.4 kilometers back when I was in secondary school, so... Oh, no, I don't think it was that bad. I think it was like 45 minutes, something like that.
Regardless, we have our set of tournaments. We have our structure for EWC. Coming into, of course, we have the details of the 2025 GSL Season 1. It's going to be held April 20... the qualifiers are going to be April 26th. I was like, wait, what? I was like, the event is a couple of days. The qualifiers are in a couple of days already, and we might be able to cover some of that. Historically, we have always covered the Code like qualifying matches, so we might be able to do that via replays. Live coverage is not available, but replay coverage we might be all over. So definitely something to look forward to there. We'll be all over that, and we'll bring you that in the coming. Yeah, May it's going to be busy. It's going to it's going to be a busy one, Papi. But the qualifiers are coming up in less than a week.
On that note, I want to quickly mention that if you are still thinking about participating in GSL and you are able to be in Korea to play the qualifiers and the event, you have like 3 hours to sign up. So if you're hearing this message, the time is now.
Sign up. I think what I'm going to be most curious by when it comes to GSL qualifiers is who is going to play in them. We spoke about SOS returning, right? We spoke about him returning. We spoke about him coming back. We are still waiting for a couple of others, Yaku. I don't know if you remember this. Stats. He was competing last year. He was playing, and after EWC, he stopped. Right, he stepped away.
Katowice last year,
Yeah, he was in Katowice. Like, he was competing in offline events, and he was looking decently in form. Stats is at least in my mind the player that comes to mind. DRG is the other one, like Dong Regu. These are two players that haven't officially stated that they're retiring or anything like that, but they haven't played in quite some time. Trap is the other one. Trap, he was active in December. He was active in January. Trap, he fell off in March. Like, he has been gone just out of nowhere. He just disappeared.
That's something we actually did get an update from Gemini from. Trap, I don't remember if he said that Trap has officially retired, but he did say that Trap is stepping away right now to spend time with his family. So, I guess we shouldn't really be expecting Trap in the 2025 competitive circuit.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of like what we're keeping our eyes open for, and I feel like the GSL qualifiers are going to be a little bit indicative of as to who is going to be competing this year, who is stepping in, and who to look out for.
Yeah. Fingers crossed for. I know people are asking, and we can confirm. Yes, Trigger is still staying in Korea for the time being, so be excited to see Trigger in GSL.
No, he's still, he's been in Korea for quite some time at this point, so he most likely will be in the qualifiers as well. So I'm going to be looking forward to that, especially because right now Trigger, he is very much so in form. Like we said it before, we'll say it again. Right now, Trigger, he is the best player in the North America region, by I would say a big margin at the moment, especially without Straya being around. So he's definitely going to be a good contender to make a deep run in GSL.
Absolutely, I honestly think that semifinals isn't out of the question for him. Just based on, looking at his past couple of months, the Korean players he's been able to beat in these online events, whether it's Pigasaur Monday or Monday Night Weekly or Sparkling Tuna Cup and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I could see him obviously the caveat to that is there are going to be players who don't play in online events who are going to be competing in the GSL qualifiers as well. But just based on his performance, man, based on the players he's been able to beat, I'm very optimistic for Trigger in GSL.
Yeah, I am as well. 100%. So I'm looking forward to seeing him in the GSL. And again, the qualifiers are going to be this weekend, so do keep your eyes open for that. That also, and of course, the main event will be taking place in the months preceding that. That also leads us into DreamHack Dallas. DreamHack Dallas, that's the next big event, of course.
Yes.
That is also sneaking up on us real fast and real quick.
Yeah, and I do think that it's worth pointing out here, the putting together StarCraft 2 at DreamHack Dallas was pretty last minute. I mean, they were waiting for updates from EWC, obviously. So, this is a little bit last minute, and as a result, this is going to be a little bit of a smaller event when it comes to the prize pool itself, and as well as, who's actually going to be able to come down and compete. I know that they say that the bracket, they are able to accommodate 128 players in that open bracket, but that's because it is only an open bracket. There's not really going to be qualifiers for DreamHack Dallas this time around.
Yeah, and a lot of this will come down. Unfortunately, I feel like a lot of whether or not players can participate will come down to where they come from, their nation of choice. There are some countries where the process of getting a visa is a little bit longer than in other countries.
Yeah, quite a bit. I mean, that's something that's plagued us quite a lot in the past, right? Players from China,
Oliveira.
Players from Vietnam, Oliveira, Mio people like that. I also know that recently there have been a couple of European countries that have also issued travel warnings for their citizens going into the US. I know France is one of them, so we'll see if that ends up... Well, I guess Clem doesn't need to go down since he's already invited to EWC, but we'll see if that ends up impacting some of the other players and whether or not they're able to get cleared on their visas and whatnot in time.
Yeah, exactly. So that's probably what it's going to come down to. I don't know the details of which countries
Germany,
have an
that's
easier
another one.
time and which countries have a harder time when it comes to acquiring visas to travel to the US. But that is going to be a big deciding factor when it comes to which players can and which players won't be able to go. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what the bracket and what the tournament looks like coming up next month. Again, the event is going to be taking place May the 23rd to May the 25th. When it comes to our coverage of it, if there is kind of like this open bracket portion, we have covered DreamHack in the past. It might be open to community coverage. There might also be co-streaming available. If you remember, in recent events, co-streaming has been available in EWC and in other DreamHacks, so we might be able to cover it that way. We'll see.
And they're gonna have to, I imagine, right? Just based on how last minute things are, I feel like they are going to be a lot more. I feel like this is going to be similar to kind of the COVID era, where they do for this particular DreamHack, they're going to want all hands on deck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. We shall see when it comes to what the coverage looks like for that. I know we're going to be all over trying to acquire our own permissions to be able to cover and cast. So yeah, May it's going to be a busy one when it comes to GSL and DreamHack, most likely.
Yeah.
And of course, we have some more news coming in. For sure. We have some news coming in when it comes to Bellum Gen's Star Zagora, as I'm pretty sure, as we do have a last minute announcement for a new qualifier, but I'm pretty sure that is most likely because of the, or maybe because of the inclusion of the EWC circuits, that maybe they wanted to include an extra player because that it's hard to say.
Yeah, I remember last week, or potentially 2 weeks ago, we did mention that we have all of our players for Bellum Gen Star Zagora Elite number 2 Bulgaria Cup. And we kind of confirmed all of it. Well, just yesterday, an announcement was made, and I think it is I think the reason behind this is what you alluded to, that EWC is coming back. We are going to have 2 more players, or 2 more slots open for Stara Zagora, a wildcard qualifier for 2 players. A wildcard global qualifier is going to be held this weekend on the 30th of April for 2 more players to qualify for Stara Zagora. Now, in the end, Stara Zagora, the winner, Stara Zagora, is only going to be awarding 1 qualifying spot to EWC, but regardless, I still think that it's really I still think that this is a cool thing to see from them, and I think that just knowing that there is going to be that 1 qualifying slot is going to be a big incentive for a lot of players to want to compete. Because again, when it came to the non-EU qualifiers, there weren't as many as we would have expected. There wasn't as much participation as we would have expected. Specifically, I mean, the Asia and the Americas qualifier there wasn't as much.
Exactly. Like it all comes down to the fact that now, because it is a part of the Esports World Cup circuit, or triathlon, or what is it?
Track, 100 meter.
The sprint.
The sprint.
I think that fits in more ways than one.
That's very appropriate.
But because of that, as you mentioned, for the qualifiers, I'm sure a lot of people weren't too interested, right? I'm sure a lot of people were like, "Oh yeah, it's an event, and sure, there's money on the line here, but we have to pay for our own travel. Like, is it really worth it?" So I guarantee you that this qualifier is going to have suddenly more interest because now suddenly there's an EWC spot. At the same time, I'm curious what the format is going to be, because the event was going to be 16 players, which makes sense. 16 players, like, it's a nicer round number for group stage, of course. Now it's going to be 18 players instead. So I'm curious to see how, because right now we don't have any details as to the format, the group stage, the playoff bracket, round robin, GSL group. We don't know yet. So I'm curious as to what this will do to the format and how the format would look like. That's
going to be interesting. I would imagine maybe the top 2 seeds get seeded directly into the playoffs, and then we have our 16 group stage from there. But it's going to be interesting. They definitely have a lot of options to play with now that they're getting 18 players instead of 16.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting format that they're going to have, and I'm also very curious to see, which players step into the ring. We mentioned at the time, but there are certain top tier players that are missing from Stars Agora, right? There is no Hero, right?
Well,
Hero was the big one that
that
was missing. There's no Solar, there's no Rogue, there's no Shin. Like a lot of the Korean, we spoke about it when it came to the Korean qualifiers or the Asia qualifier, but a lot of the Koreans weren't too interested when it comes to signing up and looking to compete. Suddenly,
yeah,
I would expect to see an influx of Koreans in the wildcard qualifier.
absolutely, and I think that we're gonna have to. The most likely Koreans are going to be the ones who are on teams who can kind of support them when it comes to their travel, their airfare, and stuff like that. So we'll see. We got 1 week. Wait, 1 week until the global wildcard qualifiers. So, team owners, this is the time. Pick up a Gumiho, pick up a creator, pick up some of these teamless Korean players.
Yeah, like I think that's, you also hit the nail on the head there, is that now teams like Twisted Minds, teams like Weibo Gaming, like these teams that just picked up some players, I'm sure right now now that they're willing to kind of like foot the bill when it comes to like travel costs, right?
Yep.
So to allow Classic to travel and compete, to allow Hero to travel and compete as well, for Twisted Minds, for Shin is exactly. Shin is the other one. I'm sure that now that they have team support, these teams, they want these players to make it to EWC. So because there's an EWC spot available, they're gonna be there specifically to make sure that they have the best chance to actually get their player into Esports World Cup.
Yeah. Very exciting news. Yeah, pretty good news this week, all things considered.
It's all coming together here. Speaking of other good news, we do have our next big piece of news here, and that is the RSL. That is the StarCraft revival announcement.
Indeed, RSL.
Not to be confused with the playoff.
Not to be confused with Also, not to be confused with Revival, which is the other tournament. But yes, the Revival Star League is a brand new tournament that has been announced. It's going to be organized by some of the talent, some of the community members that we've come to know and love who are based in Korea, namely Gemini, Tasteless, Ziggy, and State. They're going to be putting this together. Not a Korean-only tournament. I think that's important to keep in mind, but it is a crowd-funded tournament that is going to be a global tournament, and they've included in their Patreon some details as to their stretch goals. If possible, they are going to be having most of the tournament online, but they would like to, if they reach that goal, have an offline finals.
Exactly. So if you want to help support StarCraft, especially in this new era where we have less big offline events and less sponsored events from these outside sources by these third parties, and more grassroots tournaments and more sustainable tournaments in StarCraft, then this is, there are a lot of patrons out there. Of course, we can talk about KSL, we can talk about our Patreon, we can talk about Wardy's Patreon, Pigsty, Pig Festival, of course. But this is another big one as well, is the RSL, is StarCraft Revival League. So yeah, it's going to be it's there if you're available. If you want to support StarCraft, if you want to support the scene, then the Patreon is the place to be.
Indeed. So links going to be thrown around, I do imagine. And yeah, with that, we actually also don't just have our Patreon details. We also have some information as to what the players that are going to be competing in this are going to be like. And this is kind of an interesting format that we have here. So it is, in fact, going to be, let me do some math. 8 plus 6 plus, so it is going to be 60 players in the end, but an interesting distribution as to how they've decided to come about as who is going to be competing. That's the most long-winded way I could have phrased that. That's the most long-winded way I could have phrased that sentence. But regardless, it's going to be 8 invited players. So 8 players going to be already directly invited in. There are going to be qualifiers held for 6 more players. But, and here's the interesting one, 2 slots for fan-voted players, for fan favorites, essentially, which is what we did for GSL versus the World. And personally, I'm glad to see it again in a small... And I'm personally glad that we are going to be seeing it again here in a different event. And that, it's not going to be too many slots taken up by fan vote. Just, 2 slots. I think that is appropriate for something like this.
Yeah, I would imagine the fan votes are going to be after the qualifiers. That would make the most sense, right? So you go to all the qualified players, and then you can have your pick as to who's after that. I'm curious as to what the criteria of the fan vote is going to be. I'm sure they're going to have, of course, a Google Doc or something for fans to submit their votes. But I'm curious if they're going to have it open to any player. Are they going to restrict it to players that only competed in the qualifiers? I would be all for that, by the way. I think we've spoken about that when it comes to Wardy invites for Wardy tournaments, where you get the Wardy qualifiers, and then we have a couple of invites left, and we're yo, Trigger played in everything, he didn't make it through, he better get an invite, sort of thing.
And then he did get an invite.
Yeah, sometimes. But there are cases where there are players that are very much so very ingrained, or they put in a lot of work, they put in a lot of efforts, and it would be great to see them, but they barely don't make the cuts. We could see them voted in as a result. Again, we don't really have the details as to the criteria of the fan vote, but there might be some there. I think another example of that is probably Max Hex won't be available for a fan vote because of the potential offline events.
They do have an offline,
yeah. I imagine that's why he's not one of the original invited players as well.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, for sure. But definitely... Huh?
Yeah, I was just wondering what other criteria they could have, because as you mentioned, having the fan vote restricted only to players who did play in these qualifiers makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think that's just logistically the easiest thing that you could do, but at the same time, I want if they open that up, they could also do other restrictions, okay, it has to be somebody who was active in weekly tournaments for this long or what have you. Yeah, it's going to be... I just await more details when they do come out.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly. So, again, shout out to Tasteless, Ziggy, Stay, to Gemini, everyone working behind the scenes to make this event a reality. I also feel like the fan vote is another way to get people more invested into the tournament itself as well, and get more eyes, get more interest in it, which is always an exciting thing. And yeah, I can already also say that... go on.
Yeah, no, I'm just going to say, when the fan vote does go live, I await some of the spiciest memes coming about for people who are we need to vote for Rogue or what have you, or we need so-and-so,
Yeah. I mean, I already know who I'm going to be advocating for, depending on who's able to get voted in.
Yeah.
Make some NA representation. No NA invites. Whether it's North America or Latino America as well. I'd be pushing for that. If Trigger doesn't make it through, mate, or potentially Max Angel as well. I know there's definitely some news to get into when it comes to Max. But yeah, regardless, it is great to see the events coming together. And again, do check out the Patreon as well. We do know that qualifiers are coming soon, TM, as they will soon be getting ready. And I'm okay saying this as well. Most likely, we'll be casting the qualifiers. Most likely, we'll be stepping in for as much as we can, for Dallas events, for RSL, for everything, all the StarCraft. Let's go.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a busy month.
Oh yeah.
Oh god. The other big piece of news here is going to be from Wax Angel. Now, we did speak on how Wax Angel, he has been trying to, I should say the TLMC admin team. Yeah. Specifically, of course, Wax Angel being the head of the TLMC admin team, has been instructed, or has been kind of given authority or given the ability to dictate the upcoming map pool. A lot has already been posted about that, especially when it comes to the more trial map pool, or something that they're kind of working on.
Provisional pool, yeah.
Yes, that's it, the provisional pool. But Wax Angel has actually put open a public poll when it comes to what is going to be done about how many new maps get introduced to the map pool as well.
Indeed. Which is cool to hear. I mean, we were kind of discussing this last week quite a bit, right? Of you know, whether it's better to have just 9 new maps, or whether they do, or whether it's better to keep a couple of old maps in the rotation and then phase them out in the next season. But of course, in that discussion, we were saying that, or at least my stance is that it depends on how often we're going to be getting map refreshes, right? If it's only going to be a once a year thing, then yeah, get them all out. Have it be 9 maps, 9 new maps all at once. Whereas if it is going to be a bit more regular, even if it's like 3 or 4 times a year, I would prefer to have like some of the favorite maps of the current season making it over to the next one, and then and only after the next season do they get taken out.
Do you think that this Reddit post is a sign that Wax watches the podcast? Do you think?
I mean, we already knew he watches us.
True,
we already
true.
knew he watches us. So
True. But because you're right, because we did have this discussion last week. We were talking about how many maps, right? We were. I think I was a little bit concerned about how, like, you know, do we get a fresh set of maps? Do we only replace some of them? And I'm definitely 100% with you there. A lot of it, I feel like, does depend on how often we get these map refreshes or these new map rotations. I 100% agree with that. I think because of that, I would push for a fresh, a 100% fresh new set of maps initially here, just because we might not know. And then, hey, if in 3 or 4 months we get a new map pool, then hey, okay, now we know we're getting it more regularly. Now we know that it's becoming more refreshed regularly as well, and now we can start to like leave some old maps and start to, like, you know, work with that, like, new knowledge, I should say.
yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Start afresh, get them all out. I mean, it's also been a while, right, of having this current map pool, so yeah, might as well start afresh and then see how things go from there for this upcoming season.
Yeah, for sure. Regardless, I do appreciate that Wax decided to make it like a public vote. It's one of these things where I feel like this is probably where things are going to be moving a little bit more, is you know, allowing the rest of the community to have a say, right? To have a voice, and to have some impact and some influence on certain things in regards to StarCraft 2, whether it comes to something like this, like map pools, or even like the fan vote thing as well. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, considering we're entering kind of like a new era of StarCraft, which is more community based.
Yeah. I don't want to call it the epilogue, but, like, you know.
Yeah. So
interesting times we're stepping into.
Yeah. So shout out to Wax for, of course, making the post and for making this available. Again, for those that are curious, you can vote yourself on what you think or what you prefer when it comes to a new map pool. I mean, you already heard our opinions, but you can have your own opinion as well. Votes are currently open. This was only posted yesterday, so you can, of course, vote yourself on what you think would be best when it comes to the new map pool, when it comes to the ratio of older and newer maps.
Yeah.
So that is available. That also leads us into our next bit of news here. That leads us into the StarCraft Evolution Complete new patch notes. They just keep coming.
And they don't stop coming. This is an extension of what we went through last week. Last week we went through 1.5, and this is 1.15. Did I say 1.5? I meant to say last week we went over 1.15, and this week we're going over 1.15.1. So yeah, just a couple of number adjustments here that have been made.
There we go. Yes, and we do have our initial kind of introduction to said patch. As you mentioned, the 1.15 patch was very extensive. There was a lot of changes, a lot going on, a massive shakeup of the meta, and a massive shakeup of attempted adjustments as well to what StarCraft Evolution would entail for a lot of the races. But now we do have that extension, as you mentioned, and to kick things off, we understand that there's been some confusion about our changes in recent patch notes, as certain terms may be unfamiliar to some of our players. We're also aware that many of our loyal supporters are not native speakers of English and are reading the patch notes with help of machine translators. As such, many nerfs in previous patch notes were interpreted by some of our readers as buffs and vice versa. In order to help our readers understand exactly what we mean, we would like to make a few clarifications. Attack period is a number. This we already know, but yes, attack period is number of seconds which must pass after a unit attacks before it can attack again. It is inversely related to attack speed, which is the number of attacks. So this is a bit of an explanation of certain terminology.
This is a forward that I very much so appreciate, and I have to wonder if it was made specific, because I remember specifically, I multiple times
we explained it though, but yeah,
about attack period. You explained it, yeah. I did get confused when it came to attack period, so I appreciate this forward so much, honestly.
Fair enough.
It's like a glossary of terms.
I
think it's very, very useful.
For sure. So this is just a brief explanation of that, which, yeah, I mean, again, as you mentioned, it is useful just for terminology's sake, 100%. Talking about game speed, talking about how they count units of time as well. So I do appreciate,
So it's not just the language; it's also the math that are clarifying.
There you go. As we now actually have. As we do have some changes here. So decreased barracks build time from 70 seconds to 67 seconds. Interesting. The barracks build time was previously increased as a way to weaken the strength of barracks timings and all-ins, which build their first two barracks at the natural entrance and attempt to intercept the first overlord. The premise was that since such builds are previously so threatening to SE2 Zerg, there was no good way for them to assess Brutal Terran's commitment to aggression without the Overlord. This change would give the Overlord a crucial few seconds in order to arrive safely at the pillar. However, with the strength of the bio timings diminished, which is true, right? We spoke about how that we've had nerfs to the Academy, to certain research timings, to the medic extensively as well. So it looks like because, of course, overall bio timings have been nerfed, it looks like they will be adjusting and I would say buffing barracks build time, which makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, this is the thing, right, that they've been monitoring the most, and this is the thing that this is the one issue that really they're being very careful about, which makes sense.
There we go. Meanwhile, we do have a change to the Goliath here. Decrease model size by 6.67%.
An interesting one, yeah. I mean, you mentioned decrease model size by 6.67%, but the collision size is going to be the same. So, in effect, the hitbox itself is pretty much going to be the same thing. And they mentioned that the reason for this change is that initially they increased the radius and the hitbox of the Goliath to prevent clumping, but it is now a little bit too confusing. Like, with the size increase of the Goliath, it became a little bit confusing, I suppose, or a little bit out of place. So, yeah, this is purely just a visual change to make things a bit clearer in game.
Yeah, we should emphasize that it's just an aesthetic change. So interesting. Because if you remember, yes, the Goliath was increased in size last patch. Again, just to minimize its effectiveness. But here it looks like they just had a visual change to the Goliath. Up next, we do have the Valkyrie change. Valkyrie decreased attack AoE damage zone radius by 12%. Interesting. The Valkyrie appears to be well tuned to air-to-air engagements with small to medium number of units. However, they seem to be overwhelmingly powerful past a certain critical mass. This is true. I would agree with that. Although it is natural for a dedicated air-to-air splash damage unit like the Valkyrie to have strong scaling, we believe the natural tendency for air units to clump in StarCraft 2's game engine is partially to blame for its incredible performance, and would like to give players opposing Valkyrie slightly more leeway to reactively spread their units. As such, rather than adjusting the Valkyrie's base damage or reducing the size of its area effect damage zones.
Interesting. So this is basically like the nuke, right? Where closer to the center of the nuke does full damage, but then when you get to the edges, it does a little bit less damage. But look, from what I'm understanding here. So basically, units at the center of the attack will take the most damage, but then units that are more at the side will take less.
Yeah, I mean, in general, it has still been weakened. Like overall, it's still like damage is doing less
Alright.
damage.
The
Overall,
splash itself, I mean.
yeah. The splash itself is, I mean, it just as it's explained here, for each area of the zone is going to be doing less damage. And this does make sense. As is stated, like Valkyries are quite powerful and you can achieve a lot with quite a little. But it looks like it's becoming a little bit too punishing, so they are going to be reducing the effectiveness of the Valkyrie by a little bit. As I mentioned, it's only by 12%. So again, it's one of those things where they're just allowing players to micro against it a little bit easier and just for it to be less punishing.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Oh, meanwhile,
Okay, so we
Science
have the-
Vessel.
Yeah,
No longer
Science
massive.
Vessel, which I get why they did this. I mean, as they said, originally the Science Vessel paired with the Battle Cruiser was a little bit too strong, so they gave the Science Vessel a massive tag in order to kind of allow units like Corruptors or, well, yeah, I guess mostly Corruptors to have a bit of an easier time trying to pick them off. But now that the battle cruiser is a little bit weaker, they do want the science vessel to have a bit more survivability, so they're removing the massive attribute. But it still pains me because I miss my big boy science vessel.
Fair enough. So Science Vessel is no longer massive. Meanwhile, Battle Cruiser increased attack damage bonus per weapon upgrade from +3 to +4.
Yeah, single sentence here for the explanation. Just make it a bit more proportional to the base attack damage that was adjusted in the previous patch.
There you go. Next, we do have the one change to Zerg, which is decreased morph cost from the Devourer from 150 to 150. The one line is just it costs quite a bit, and Devourers are very niche, so they wanted to reduce that just to make them more accessible. Makes sense considering, again, Devourers are solely an anti-air unit, and again, we rarely get to see them, so yeah, they have reduced the cost there.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. And finally, we get to our Protoss changes that, by the looks of things, it's only affecting Skytoss.
Yeah, interesting. So we have increased the shuttle cost from 150 minerals to 175. We have increased the unload period from 0.9 to 1 instead. And we've increased the gravitic drive research cost from 100 to 125, 125. Okay, so nerfs across the board here to the shuttle.
Interesting. Is this because of the what's the unit I'm thinking of here? Like
Reaver?
The Reaver, yeah. Is this because of the Reaver?
I would imagine so. If you recall, there was a change to the Reaver when it comes to the main patch, the main 1.15 patch, regarding their ability to unload, to retarget, to shoot, of course. So it looks like because of the now newfound strength of the Reaver, they wanted to nerf the shuttle a little bit more as well. I would imagine this is also in a way to maybe even try to disincentivize Reaver drop play, just because it's so common. It's so common. We see it in every single matchup even. So this might be likewise also trying to address that in a way.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
Meanwhile, we do have a change here to the Corsair, which is actually basically the same change that we saw from the Valkyrie, just to the Corsair.
Yeah, same change with the Valkyrie and same reasoning behind it as well. Air units in StarCraft 2 clump way too much, so they want to make the air air splash a little bit less so.
Yep, and the next changes to the Arbiter decreased the Arbiter Tribunal cost from 250, 200 to 200, 150 instead, which I do appreciate. Arbiters right now are a rare sight in StarCraft Evolution, despite their strength, I will say, but again, like, you do have to mass up quite a lot of them, and again, they're just not seen as often anymore, so I suppose that this is another way to try to incentivize more Arbiter play, make that tech a little bit more accessible.
Interesting. How powerful are arbiters exactly? Like, how are they utilized right now?
So, if you recall, right now they're not utilized.
Okay, well,
right now they use this as a supportive unit for Skytoss up against, like, say, late game mech, for example. Arbiters, they have mass stasis fields, so just like how
right, I remember that.
Oracle has, the Oracle has to cast a revelation. Sorry, has to cast a stasis field. Arbiter just bam can just mass stasis clumps of units. Arbiters, they also have recall, right? You can recall to an Arbiter as well. I believe the radius is smaller than like a Mothership recall, for example, but you can recall to an Arbiter, and it also allows cloak. It also can like AoE cloak. So it's I guess similar to how the Mothership is used in StarCraft 2. Similar. But again, like, currently it's only really used in late game, like, Skytoss armies, and late game Skytoss is a rare sight to begin with in StarCraft Evolution. So yeah, I appreciate. I appreciate this just because I think the idea is that maybe we'll see it as a more supportive unit with other compositions as well, other compositions.
Yeah. I'll have to stay tuned.
As from there, we do have some bug fixes.
Yeah, a couple of bug fixes, a couple of quality of life changes as well. Command centers will no longer display a active energy bar if connected to a ComSat station. Instead, the station itself will be the ones that displays the energy bar.
There you go. Yeah, it looks like it was just a bug that occurred because, if you remember, they melded the two in a way when it comes to hotkeys, right? So that was maybe like an unintended bug that occurred. Likewise, increased duration of minimap pings to 30 seconds for all game speeds. So it looks like it was depending on what game speed you had. So they just generalized that.
Yeah, make it proportional, make it standardized as well. Adjusted the color of the minimap pings from red to green, and fix an issue where minimap pings on 4 spawn maps would appear everywhere instead. That's an important bug to fix then. Since the whole point of having the pings is to prevent that. Is to give people more of a sense of where their opponent spawns. So.
Yeah, exactly. So it looks like there were just a couple of bugs that are going to be cleaned up here. There's a bug that is known, but it's going to be fixed later on. Apparently, there's an issue with minimap pings on 4x4 maps will not appear at all on certain official SC Evo complete maps. So it looks like there is still that bug ongoing on specific maps, so they're still working through that fix in an upcoming patch. But there is also another kind of big part of this that we have to bring to everyone's attention, of course, is that this entire balance patch that we've been discussing has not actually been implemented yet because it cannot be implemented, as currently Blizzard have actually disabled the ability for people to update their own arcade maps and mods in StarCraft 2.
Yeah, this is a temporary measure that Blizzard has taken, mostly in response to apparently
I just want to mention, I think that this patch actually went live before that was a thing. So this patch may be actually live, but there will be no follow-ups, I think.
All right. So, yeah, for the next couple of days, next couple of weeks, probably not going to be much of a follow-up, at least in the arcade. As we mentioned, this is a temporary measure Blizzard is taking, as there has been an influx, apparently, of a lot of mods, a lot of lobbies being posted in the SC2 arcade that would end up linking or would end up posting graphics to content that breaks TOS. Let's put it that way. A lot of like, a lot of like hate speech stuff. A lot of like,
Yeah, it's apparently it's been an issue that's been happening for quite some time. It's just something that Blizzard hasn't necessarily addressed. I think they've been speculating that this has been happening for a year at this point. On and off, these issues have been occurring, but it has been brought to Blizzard proper's attention since then, and because of that, again, they are currently at least no longer allowing updates to be made or anything like that. We have actually heard from Blizzard spokesman, from their Blizzard comms team, that they are working on it. They're working on a fix to make sure that this exploit is no longer prevalent, and they do plan on allowing updates to be made once again soon TM, but at least until they fix it.
Yep. Not quite able to. They are working on it, and they are looking to get an estimate, but there isn't one just yet. However, old mate Elliot, the Blizzard representative, did mention that updates are going to come as soon as they can actually get a sense of how long it's going to take to fix this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
exactly.
As a note, the exploit was that like you could literally like insert an imagery or video into like the game client in a way, and like people were reporting that like after being in such a infected lobby, to put it that way, it would like change the background of their game and stuff like that to some questionable images, to put it that way. So it's like an actual serious issue, and it's good that Blizzard is finally taking a look at that.
Yeah, exactly. So hopefully it doesn't take too long to resolve this, just because it is negatively impacting like other parts of the game that where they would like to update maps or update mods or things of that nature.
You see what happens when we don't just have the janitor in charge?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, hopefully that does get rectified soon. Otherwise, I believe that is going to be us wrapping up all of our news for the week. Let's go.
Big announcements.
A lot of big announcements, for sure. We still have yet to really know, for example, I don't think we yet have dates on, for example, the new TLMC map pool. Again, as we mentioned previously, we do expect the new map pool to be live before EWC, but whether it's before Stars Agora, whether it's before DreamHack Dallas, whether it's before GSL, yet to be determined when it comes to how those tournaments are going to be affected by the new map pool, if at all.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
For sure. And with that, are we good to go on a break?
I guess, yeah.
Okay. With that, we're going to be going on a short break, and when we come back, we're going to be going over all the news here of the week, or I should say, all the tournament results of the week.
Yeah, we'll see you then.
See you then. And welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. We just wrapped up with the news here for the PondCast number 44. And now we returned with this week's tournament results. Of course, Yaku, he has gone to get some food. He's going to get some rest. I was happy to have him on for the new segment when it comes to catching up with all things StarCraft related. But now we're going to be quickly going over all the results here of the week's tournaments. Again, there are just so many events that go on throughout the week, so many that we cover, and even more that we do not. There's just so much StarCraft. And because of that, we don't expect everyone to be able to watch every single event. We're here to catch up on those results. And also, recommend tuning into the VODs, recommend checking out those streams that did cover the events, and checking out the VODs on their respective channels as well, if you see anything that does pique your interest. First things first, we do have the Biggest World number 28. This is an event that is held by Hyper One. Hyper One, this is very impromptu. We have covered some of these events ourselves, multiple actually, as I believe this is more or less a monthly tournament, but this time this was a very special edition here, actually initially featuring a show match. We did initially feature a show match between Kenosoa as well as Goog as well, or Goog. We had a best of 7 between the two of them in StarCraft Evolution. They did face off with some more unorthodox maps. You can see there they played on Dasan Station, Death Valley, the Ultimate Summoner's Rift. No idea what the hell that is. And Chrysalis. So some more meme maps. Again, this is more of like a meme show match sort of event, and that led into an FFA match as well. Again, not too much structure going on here, but the players, I'm sure, had a great time with each other. Apparently, they played the FFA on Jungle Maze 2, which we have featured on the channel as well. Jungle Maze 2 is an FFA format that actually features neutral, kind of third-party creeps, like these massive ultras and these massive mutas that roam the map and kill anything and anyone. It does make some fun FFAs, some very fun FFAs, and also it features this kind of like battle royale, like shrinking map towards the end of the game as well. Of course, in the end, we do have Goog winning, becoming the champion of the FFA, but Kenosoa winning the main best of 7 show match. So shout out to all the competitors here for the event. Again, if you do want to tune into this, check out Hyper One's personal stream, Twitch and on YouTube, so do check out those VODs. Again, always a lot of fun checking out the FFAs and seeing all these friends and players compete amongst themselves. Meanwhile, from our more modded from StarCraft Evolution, we do head on over to some amateur StarCraft. Now, we did host our monthly tournaments. We had the Amazon Open number 91. This is our monthly tournament, which is more dedicated towards players that are between the leagues of bronze and 4.7k MMR, around Masters 2 and below, essentially. And we did have some new competitors here this time. We had Noguri, we had the favorite player, Captain Fish, showing up. We had Dizzy Dwarf, we had Tyr, we had Beast, Horseradish, Providence, and Zigger. We had some regulars and some newer faces, and in the end, Noguri did claim the win over Beast 3-1. So congratulations here to our Zerg player. Shout out to Beast for making it here to the grand finals as well. Again, we host this on a monthly basis. This used to be a more regular bi-weekly event. Well, actually, I think it was always a monthly, to be fair. I think there was a period where we did have it as a bi-weekly. But yeah, nowadays we only do host it as a monthly. This was one of our first events that we did host back in the day, though, alongside Duckling Open. So it's definitely something that we do plan on continuing to run, of course. And recently we did reach a high enough Patreon tier where now our tournaments are on the main space. Let's go. Duckling Open and Masters on Open, they're now on the main space, now no longer on the user space. What does this mean? We're on Liquipedia proper. So thank you so much to all of the supporters on Patreon. Thank you so much to all of our patrons and all of our supporters, whether you're here watching on YouTube or on Kick or on TikTok or on Twitch as well. Thank you so much. It's thanks to you that we're able to host events like this and support these up-and-coming players. Thank you. Thank you so much. As Noguri does claim first place, Beast claims second, and Tyr claims the random bonus as well. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. With that, that leads us into our next event, into PassionCraft Emerging Stars number 13. I don't get to meet with Yaku about this anymore. Of course, this is an event that is for 5.5k players and below, 5.5k MMR, and the winner is qualified to Rising Star number 15, the OSC Elite Rising Star number 15. Fun fact, we have already a plethora of players that have qualified from these Emerging Stars tournaments, and will be able to cast and watch and cover OSC Elite Rising Star 15 one day. we'll cover it one day once 14 wraps up. Smurge, papi, smurge. It'll happen eventually. It'll happen one day, I'm sure. One day. God damn, it's gonna take all year. It's gonna take all year. Regardless, congratulations to Mini Zerg UA for taking down F2 Click 2-0, Hackers Top 2-0, and Lowless 3-0. Big performance here from Mini Zerg. Very strong performance, not dropping a single map in the entire tournament. Insane run there, and congratulations, is now going to be a part of the OSC Elite Rising Star 15. GG, well played. So congratulations. Shout out to all the other competitors, of course. We had Lewis, we had Danielo, we had Defi, Hackers Top, Mizu, and Fienend as well. So some names that we're quite familiar with. Regardless, congratulations to Mini Zerg. Hope to see more of Mini Zerg in the future. Definitely a name that I've seen before, and looking forward to seeing more of them in the future as well. Congratulations, best of luck in the Elite Rising Star. That does lead us over into this week's Amateur League weekly tournaments. A lot of events. Basically, the way this works here is that there is an amateur weekly for different ranges of leagues and ranges of MMR. So up first, we have Bronze to Platinum. Bronze to Platinum here for the Amateur League Weekly. We did have 4 competitors, double elimination, and in the end, Flesh, a Zerg player, took the win 3-0 over Ragnar. Ragnar is a regular in our tournaments, did compete, did make it to the finals, so congratulations. Shout out to Ragnar for making a deep run here. Flesh, someone that I'm not familiar with, but congratulations to Flesh, and shout out to Ragnar for claiming that second place. Again, these tournaments that we're going to be going over, they do not actually have tournament prize money as a prize pool or as earnings, but they do provide points for an overall finals event that players can, or that players are going to be seeded into. So they do earn points over time. So congratulations here to Flesh. That leads us into the Diamond 3/Diamond 2 portion to that weekly, where we did have Winter, a player that we are very familiar with. He has played in our tournaments before. Winter does claim the win 3-1 over Balimko. GG will play. Congratulations to Winter. Again, he's played in our tournaments in the past, and he is one of the only players I'm familiar with. I see Dave Latos as well. Let's go. I see Dave Latos, Old Lady, Balimko, Galatius as well, and Bendito as well. So congratulations to Winter. Does claim the win. Once again, double elimination bracket. Does take that best of 5. That leads us into the prestige event, Diamond 1 to Masters 2. I would say a much larger MMR brackets compared to D2 and D3. I will say that at least. So a much larger MMR bracket. We have Dizzy Dwarf, a player that we're very familiar with. Dizzy Dwarf and Beast actually as well. Beast, he got knocked down earlier by Milka, but Beast got his revenge, taking down Milka in the rematch in the lower bracket finals. We had Zigger, another regular in our tournaments. Honestly, a lot of the players here we have played in our events in the past. Arez, Blade of Fire, Milka, Beast, Dizzy Dwarf, Zigger, Defiance. All players that have played in our events, and players that are near and dear to my heart at least. So congratulations to Beast for winning in that rematch. Does claim to win in the end. And that leads us into the final M1/GM tournament. We had 4 players facing off, and in the end, Fairspitter, the Spanish player. That's a player that I now recognize. The Spanish Protoss player claims the win over Mabadi, who's also another player that's played in our tournaments before. Taniko, aka Mabadi, does take down SW Pro, but does fall to Fairspitter 3-1 or 1-3 in the finals. GG. So shout out to Fairspitter. It's great to see him competing in more tournaments than just regional events. Great to see him competing in this amateur league. Congratulations. And with that, and again, of course, this is a regular event, a regular weekly tournament for all leagues, for all ranges, all sizes. Do check it out next week. And if you happen to be a lower league player, whether you happen to be, within the ranges of the Amateur League Weeklies or the Passioncraft Emerging Stars or our tournaments as well, like MSO, like SDO, consider signing up. consider signing up, consider taking part in these events. It's a great way to compete, a great way to be a part of the community, and a great way to give yourself motivation to improve as well. That's kind of like the big thing is a lot of these tournaments, they do want to give you incentive to compete, to improve, and to level up. With that, that also does lead us here into the All Things Protoss Team League. It's an ATL, All Things Protoss. I mean, it is a little bit more of a meme team league. There's a lot of off-racing going on. There's a lot of very quirky teams coming into play as well. And I believe we just wrapped up week number 3. Okay, we had the Gooners. We had the Gooners going up against, not Linkin Park, but Blinken. Let's go. We had, of course, Gunner and Gref going back and forth, tied 1-1 scoreline. Let's go. That PvP, I'm sure, was very intense. We had Shemetz taking down Thor 2-0. We had Frogos taking down Ventavik 2-0, and Frogos does win it all in the end. The Gooners, they come out on top. I knew they would. I just never give up, never doubt a Gooner, as the Gooners do claim the win. We then had Smurf Time taking down Overslept 4-3. Hydra took down Goblin, big win there for Hydra. Tix took down Takua. We had Mars Bar and Franz going back and forth, and Hydra gets a 3-0 over Goblin. Very dominant performance there. Shout out to Hydra, of course. Again, Goblin is off racing. Hydra is main racing, so Hydra is favored there. But yeah, very well done. Very well done there by Hydra. Not easy to bring down Goblin. And we also had the Fromage team, the Cinque Fromage team, facing off against the Goobers. The Rainbow takes down Fian 2-0. I'm sure that was a short series. Lorimbo, he's a very cheesy player. Shout out to Lorimbo. Does take down Fian 2-0. We had Stone Sword taking down Revo 2-0 as well. And Arky taking down Azaro 2-0. So a lot of 2-0s in that series. Heading on over to the other side, we had Off Race taking down Viet Cong. Solicitous over Akedon. Iberi over Echo Soldier. Heroku did tie things up with Sacred Coconut, and we had Sacred Coconut getting the win in that final ace match. I'm still shaking my head. Viet Cong, no Vietnamese players. What's going on? What's happening? Shaking my head. With Off Race, they do come out on top. I don't know if the players on Off Race are actually off racing, by the way. But regardless, GG. Leads us into Feline versus Cannons. Spazzy 1-1 with Alutin. We had Angrath going up and taking down Z-Rila 2-0. We had D-Smoth going up against Xenodactyl, a name that I have not seen in quite some time. He deserves to be on Team Cannons. He does nothing but cannon rush. I hope that, I mean, we do see a full Protoss lineup for Team Cannons. I hope they did cannon rush every single game. I want to believe. In the end, Feline did claim it, though, 4-2. And then we had Team Paget up against Monkey. Monkey, of course, being Yaku's favorite team. I don't blame him. Don't blame him at all. Azula tied things up against Ledlix 1-1. We had Ardent 1-1 against Ogma. We had Makoto against Wingets, also 1-1. This is the closest series we've had this week. Oh, just non-stop 1-1 scorelines. And in the end, did go the way of Monkey, with Nihed taking down Azura 1-0. Nihed, GG. GG well played. They did get the 1-0 scoreline at the end. Congratulations. And a shout out to Gemini, of course, for casting, for hosting, for bringing this event together. I do recommend checking out Gemini's stream for the VODs and for the rest of this event. So GG. We still have more weeks to go, and again, more nonsense when it comes to some of these team names and seeing these players face off against each other. Do recommend it. We can already see that the lineups are already confirmed as well, so players, they have time to prepare and time to get ready here for the upcoming matches. So shout out to Gemini and all those working behind the scenes at All Things Protoss, as we'll be catching up with more of this in the future, in the coming weeks. That leads us into Gamers Assembly 2025, an event that did actually that I wasn't quite able to catch myself, but it is a big event that did occur over in Lena, France. A pretty hefty prize pool as well. This may have also been an offline event. Yeah, it was an offline event. So shout out to those in the French community for coming together for competing in this event. And we see some players that we haven't seen in quite some time. Shadown, I'm a fan myself. I haven't seen compete in quite some time. Did show up for this event. We had Arrowfire, we had DNS, we had some hefty competitors in this tournament. I'm a little bit sad to see that Clem wasn't casting. This reminds me of the Finnish tournament. For those that don't know, there's an event that does occur in Finland, at least online, that they do kind of bring together, and the Finnish scene does come together for it as well. And Cyril does come on as a guest caster. Would have been fun to have seen Clem interact in some way with this event. Regardless, great to see the turnouts for the event, bearing in mind this was offline. And in the end, Shadown does claim the win. We had some hefty PvPs here between Shadown, Arrowfire, and DNS. In the end, Shadown got knocked down by Arrowfire, but he does get his revenge in the finals. With a crazy result, actually, again. So big win there for Shadown. Congratulations. I hope to see more of Shadown in the future. Again, he has been a little bit less active as of late, but for him to win this tournament, that's a big win. It's a big win here for Shadown. Just double checking something actually here. As Shadown, yeah, fun fact. Before Gamers Assembly 2025, he last competed in the Wardy TV 2v2 series in December. Before that, WTL in August. He has been MIA for almost a year. Gee, it's oh my god. Yeah, he last really competed in WTL. That was back in August, and since then he's been very, very absent from tournaments. So Shadown, he's one of those players that I was worried had silently retired. And again, Gamers Assembly is just an offline event, so maybe he just went to it just to compete, just to take part. But I'm hoping that we see more of him now. Again, he has been gone since August of last year, so he's been very absent and very much so missing in action. So I hope to see more of Shadown. You know, I'm a fan myself, so I hope this does spark his competitive drive. I hope we see more of him in the future. I hope this isn't the last we see of him until the next Gamers Assembly. Shadown. Regardless, congratulations, and that leads us into our next big event. That leads us into the 3D Clan in-house tournament number 2. Again, 3D Clan, they have a pretty hefty roster. Milky Cow did recently join them, and we did have Milky Cow not winning the event, by the way. Hold on. Hold on. Sub-Zero. He's the caster, right? No shot. Yeah, he's Sub-Zero, who typically does cast in the Russian language. He won the event. He beat Milky Cow. That's crazy. I didn't know he was that good of a player. Like, I rate Milky Cow very highly, by the way. I rate him very highly. So for Milky Cow to go down 3-0, I have to watch those games. But that is oh, I see. Never mind. I was about to give praise to Sub-Zero. I mean, I guess I still am. If you look at the Wikipedia page, Milky Cow, he off-raced. In the finals, Milky Cow, he did not play Terran. He played Protoss. Now this makes more sense. Now that I don't want to give shade to Sub-Zero, but I was like, yo, like I was not like taking out Milky Cow is crazy, but now it makes a little bit more sense. Looks like Milky Cow, he did off race his Protoss. Again, regardless, shout out to Sub-Zero for claiming the win, for winning the event. Did defeat Milky Cow's off race. GG, well played. So shout out to Sub-Zero. With that does wrap up our 3D Clan in-house event. That leads us into Amantes. Amantes is StarCraft number 38. We actually did cover this morning. This is a monthly tournament for the Brazilian scene. Now, just once again, as a bit of a PSA, we were originally going to be casting Code for Giants Cup this morning. Code for Giants Cup is a bi-weekly Brazilian tournament, and we were going to be all over it, right? We were going to be there for that Brazilian tournament, but there was no Brazilian event this morning. I did contact Cosmos. He actually just responded to me. Apparently, the Code for Giants Cup is on hiatus. It is on hiatus. Amantes' StarCraft also on hiatus as well until the offline event concludes. Right now, there is a Brazilian StarCraft 2 circuit. We're about to get into it. It's a big event happening in Brazil with an offline finals, and all these tournaments, like Amantes, like Code for Giants Cup, were providing points for that big event. Because that event is currently underway, these events are now going to be going on hiatus until the next circuit, until the next big Brazilian circuit. So this may be the final Amantes of StarCraft for some time, for like a couple of months even. So just a heads up there. But regardless, shout out to the competitors here. If you missed out, I highly recommend checking out the VODs. Of course, we did have Master as the best Protoss player in Brazil. Master, he was coming in as the favorite player, by the way. Master, he's very much so a regular in these tournaments, and he is favored to win them all, unless someone steps up like Eric or like Inexorable. And this is a big return from Inexorable. Now, if you've been watching Brazilian StarCraft, you would know that Inexorable, he has been MIA for a couple of months at this point. For almost 2 months, Inexorable has been missing in action, and I did ask him about it. I was concerned. Did ask him about it, and he did let us know, of course, that it was because of studies. He was currently in exam period, or in his exam period when it comes to his university, when it comes to his studies. So Inexorable, he wasn't able to compete for quite some time, and now he's back. Now the exams are over, he can focus on StarCraft again, and I wasn't too certain as to how he would look, right? For taking some time off for studies means that typically his form would be a little bit more shaky, but he caused some crazy upsets. Like coming into this tournament, Master, he's a regular. He plays in all these weeklies, all these monthlies as well. Master is a regular. Master is in form. So for Inexorable to come out of left field after a long break and to win the entire tournament, it was impressive. It was hype. If you missed out this morning, I recommend the VODs. It was a crazy finals. It went all the way to the ace match as well. It went all the way to game 7. Very intense, very back and forth. In the end, Inexorable did take the win, and Master barely didn't quite pull it off. Again, Master, he was a favorite player coming into this. Inexorable, he was the underdog, and it was a great series, a great finals. Do recommend. GG, well played. In the end, Inexorable, he does claim the win. Do recommend checking out the VODs. This month, there was no Eric, unfortunately. There was no Eric to represent Zerg, just pure Protoss and Terran instead. But again, Eric, I'm sure he's focusing on the Brazilian circuit. Speaking of, that's up next. Up next, El Circuito Brasileiro de SE2. We have the big Brazilian circuit here that we've been building up towards the entire year. This is going to have an offline event, an offline finals in Sao Paulo. So massive hype in the Brazilian scene. There's been so much Brazilian StarCraft going on. And we actually did cast, in English of course, the initial Group Stage 1 over the weekend. Over the weekend was Group Stage 1. As you can see, we have our results coming in. It was a very intense weekend of StarCraft because we covered 4 groups in 2 days. A lot of on top of our regular casting, of course. So there was a lot of StarCraft going on. Shout out to Shakti. Shakti and Sephiroth did make it through Group A. Ares barely did not. Quickly going over what happened there. Unfortunately, Ares, he actually made it to the decider match, but there was a walkover. Unfortunately, Ares, he was unavailable. He could not actually play out that final series. So Sephiroth, he got the walkover of Ares. I'll be honest, I think Ares was favored there. I feel like Ares was favored. He was popping off that night. He was performing very, very well. And it's a shame that we didn't see Ares versus Sephiroth. Regardless, Sephiroth, he gets the walkover. He does advance on over Ares in the end. In second place, we have Tatagiba and Maffer making it through Group B. We have Elevolts and Victor making it through Group C. And we have Purple and Dakon making it through Group D. And that was a crazy result as well. Like, I mean, in general, I do recommend the VODs. Like, there were a lot of really hype matches throughout the course of this broadcast, especially Elevolts. Elevolts versus Victor. Hype. There was so much hype around Elevolts versus Victor. I do recommend checking out those matches. Likewise, there was so much hype around Dakon versus Purple. There is like a 800 MMR disparity. Purple, he's like D1 Masters 3. Dakon, he's like M1 GM. Like Dakon, he's like 4.8, 5k MMR. Purple around 4.2, 4.3k MMR. And Purple, he had a crazy performance On top of that, Duckling is an animal. he's an absolute animal. Duckling, he was going for hyper aggressive builds, all ins, very low drone count. Purple, he was defending his heart out as well. There was so much hype, it was very intense. In the end, Purple did take the win in a crazy upset. Again, he has like what, almost 1,000 MMR less than his opponents, but he still popped off. Very impressive performance. Purple came out in first place, Duckling in second. Again, Elevator Victor, also hype matches. I do recommend it. Do recommend the VODs. A lot of really good matches in the first stage, and that leads us into stage 2. The groups have been seeded. The groups have been seeded. Here we go. If you're curious, if you're looking like, hold on, where is Inexorable? Where's Eric? Where's Master? Where are the big That's a full set of GMs there. Master, Yan, Shakti, and Duckling. That is a terrifying group. All the other groups have a mixture of GMs, Masters, and even some Diamond players. Said it before, but like Purple, for example, he is like Diamond M3 sort of era, or kind of like league range here. Again, some of these more amateur players made it through the group stage in some upsets. I should emphasize that as well. But I would say that a lot of these groups look a little bit more one-sided. Like Group A, I favor Dominoko and Kamikaze, 100%. I do favor them. Group B, I favor Eric and Claw. I think Group B has some variance, to be fair. Like Eric, 100%. Claw, Tatagiba, Sefirofe. I can see them fighting for each other for second place. Group C, I favor Inexorable and Allison, 100%. Do favor them. Group D, that is a hard one to call. Master is a clear favorite, that is true. But again, he's stuck in a group with Yan, Shakti, and Duckling. Like that's gonna be spicy. that's gonna be a tough one to call. I think I lean towards Yan. I got a soft spot in my heart for Yan. Like I'm a big fan of Yan. At the same time, Shakti is a veteran. You can definitely favor him over everyone else. Duckling is hyper cheesy, hyper aggressive. He can upset anyone. It's definitely one to look out for. If you can only check out one group, I'm gonna recommend Group B because of Eric, of course. But after that, Group D. Like Group D is also looking very intense and very hype. So yeah, that's going to be taking place in 2 weeks' time, in 1 week and a couple of days. So do check out the group stage. We're going to be casting it, of course, here on the channel in English, and that leads into the playoffs and into the offline finals in Sao Paulo. So there's a lot of StarCraft going on in Brazil, a lot of hype as well. Do check it out. Do recommend it. Do you recommend? Oh, we lost. Oh, we good?
We are good now, but like 2 sentences we were cut. For 2 sentences you were cut off for some reason.
Oh, okay, that's not good. Regardless, that leads us into the Legacy Weekly Japan. We have Legacy Weekly Japan here coming up next. This is a regular event happening for Japanese players, for Japanese residents, or I say residents, for those native to Japan. And this week we do have Nodacon. Nodacon does take the 2-0, here over Vice Ravania. Another big win. We have stated in the past how typically we favor Vice Ravania and Psyarch, but now 2 weeks in a row, Nodacon is popping off. So it's really cool to see a new rising star in the Japanese scene, in the Japanese region. It's definitely really exciting, and I do recommend, or actually, I recommend keeping an eye open. Keeping an eye open here for Nodacon. I hope to see Nodacon in maybe another, maybe in future events, outside of just Japanese regional tournaments. We'll see. We'll keep an eye out for some more Nodacon action. As that leads us into the Sunrise Cup number 197. Once again, we have our weekly events here for the Chinese region, and this week, Nanami Chiaki does come out on top. Oh my, not dropping a single map, by the way. 2-0 initially in the quarterfinals, 2-0 over Rewhite, and 3-0 over Ear. big win there for Nanami. Congratulations, very well done. Bearing in mind that Silky was also competing, but Silky did give a forfeit, a walkover to Ear. I would have loved to have seen a Silky versus Nanami. Alas, not meant to be. Regardless, Nanami does claim the win. Congratulations. Again, it's great to see this event going strong for so long here. So many events, so many years of support. Shout out to those working behind the scenes in the Chinese region. Speaking of, that leads us into the Chicken King Team League 2025 spring season. Oh boy, round one. Round one has concluded. We do have team Elpis? Yes, Elpis. They take down Toho Project 5-1. Big win here. Nanami got his win. Again, we did speak earlier. We were kind of predicting like favorite teams last week, and Elpis is one of the heavy hitters here in the team league. 2-0 from Nanami, 2-0 from Lemon. We get SCV with a tied 1-1 scoreline, but a strong showing here from Elpis. Up next, we had Team Hist against Team IW. Team IW did go down to Hist, as we have TATP, Number, and Kingslayer rocking up. And again, they also have a hefty lineup as well. There's a lot of hype around Kingslayer, a lot of hype around TATP. Number is a player that I'm a little bit less familiar with, but in general, we do have some strong showings here from Hist. Meanwhile, Little Fairy. Hold up. Starlight Twinkle, they take down Little Fairy 6-0. I mean, Starlight Twinkle, they have a strong lineup. They have Jolly Loves, Triple H, and Young Zest. Very strong lineup. But I was favoring Shameless over Jolly Loves, and Shameless, he also goes down 2-0. Crazy upset. 100%. I would call that an upset here. So Jolly with the upset over Shameless, and he was able to lead the charge here as Starlight Twinkle take the 6-0. That's a crazy result, crazy performance coming in. Little Fairy struggling in the first round. That leads us into our final matchup of round one. PCEC up against Rookie Warpgate. As PCEC, they do claim the win here, 4-2. Mixu, of course, is the quote-unquote new ace player for his team. He gets his 2-0, and the rest of the team, they do follow suit for the most part. Nice win there against Pioneer. I do rate Pioneer quite highly. Pioneer did go down, and PCEC, they do claim the win. GG well played. I'm curious to see how Little Fairy perform coming into the future rounds. Again, that's a rough start for them, but I hope to see some better results in the upcoming weeks and upcoming rounds. Likewise, some of the other favorite teams did come out on top, like Elpis, Hist, PCEC, Starlight Twinkle. Like, we do expect them to make it to the playoffs. But again, we'll see if Little Fairy can recover after the first round. I will be catching up with that next week with the upcoming rounds and upcoming season here of Chicken King. El Pollo Loco, papi, El Pollo Loco. As that does take us here into the next round. That leads us into the Super 7s number 39. We do have our weekly show match series. We have our best of 7. Best of 7 between Rogue and Classic. Rogue has been on fire as of late. We'll be going over some of those tournament results later on. But here, 4-1 over Classic. Big win, big results here from Rogue. A dominant performance even. And Classic is not too shabby himself. Classic, I would say, is top 3 Protoss in Korea. But that was a dominant showing, a strong result of Rogue with a 4-1. It bodes well for Rogue and for Rogue fans. So strong win there for Rogue with that 4-1. I do recommend checking out the VODs. I believe they were covered over on Soup. Over on the Soup platform. Up next, we do have the Soup StarCraft Global number 18. We had a 4-player invitational. We had Rogue once again. We had Bunny, we had Gumiho, we had Classic. And we had non-stop ace matches. Crazy results coming in. Rogue takes down Bunny 3-2. Classic takes down Gumiho 3-2. And despite struggling in that previous best of 7, we have another best of 7 and Classic 4-3. Much stronger showing. Much better result here from Classic. 4-3 over Rogue. And in my mind, it feels like potentially Classic just needed some time to get used to Rogue. Like, again, like Rogue had a crazy result earlier with the 4-1, but here Classic now with maybe a better handle on things, maybe a better idea on how Rogue likes to play. Something I should also emphasize, and this makes sense in, hold on, I need to have a look at this. This makes sense in my mind. Yeah, it does line up. Looking at the maps that were played out, Rogue, what maps did he win on? So if you're familiar with Rogue's playstyle, I mean, we cast plenty of Rogue on the channel. He's very fond of slowing the game down and getting into lurker tech and forcing a longer and later game. Like, he's not like a hyper-aggressive player early on. That's not really where Rogue thrives. He thrives in a secure, slower game state with a maxed out setup and a secure economy. And looking at the maps that he won in the series, Neo Violet Square, Abyssal Reef, King's Cove, all three of those maps favor Rogue style. So that makes sense in my mind. I was actually having a look at the Super 738 show match, and similarly, Rogue, he won on Neo Violet Square, King's Cove, Abyssal Reef. The very same three maps. Like, those three maps, they heavily favor defensive play. And he was able to play on all three of those maps in the previous best of 7 and in this best of 7 as well. And those are the maps that he's been winning on. Meanwhile, the smaller maps, the more aggressive maps, are where he's been struggling on. Leylines, Ultra Love, Frostline as well. I would imagine that Classic took a very different approach. I say I imagine, I haven't seen those matches, but like looking at these maps and looking at these setups, like that's how things would play out in my mind. At least in my mind. Regardless, GG well played. Shout out to Classic for having his comeback and for recovering against Rogue. Not easy to accomplish whatsoever, so GG well played. Does claim the win in the end. Congratulations. Congratulations to Classic, as maybe even a little bit of a rivalry forming between Rogue and Classic. I'd like to believe so. That leads us into our next event. That leads us into the Salt Cup number 1, an invitational here hosted by Dave Testa and Christopher Fista. Okay, this was a little bit more impromptu. I do recall this happening a couple of days ago even. We had Juanito Special. We had some nice NA representation here, as Special does end up claiming the win. Did go all the way to the A smash. This kind of lines up with what's been happening in HSL. Special, of course, he is not in his peak condition. He's not at 100%. Special, he has been on hiatus ever since EWC last year, around like July, August. Special has not been competing, not been playing, but over the past couple of weeks, over the past month, Special has returned for HSL, for the Hispanic StarCraft League that drags Special back into the limelight. Special has been playing in some Pegasaur Mondays, in some Bastards Big Brain bouts. I think it may be a Hub Cup or here or there or so, and even here in the Salt Cup. So it's great to see Special returning to form. He's been competing once again. Here, shaky performance. I'm very impressed by Foxer. Foxer to take multiple maps off of Special, I would say that would be unheard of, at least in years past, but in current StarCraft, he's more competitive here with Special. Bodes well. GG well played. Foxer clearly in form, but congratulations to Special for winning it all in the end. Congratulations. As this was more of an impromptu open cup. Shout out to all the other competitors. We had Mute rocking up, and Mute, he was actually able to have a deep run himself, went down to Inexorable, but got his revenge in the best of ones. We had Full Hearts competing as well. We had Angry, Moja, Berry Crunch. Good to see some more representation from the Americas region. Great to see. It's great to see. Meanwhile, that leads us into the Bastards Big Brain bouts. We typically have a theme when it comes to these matches, and we kind of have a theme here, as we did have our 4 show matches. We had Bomyelja up against Matt. Matt does claim the win 3-2, but shout out to Bomyelja. Bomi, oh my god, able to take it to the ace match here against Matt, so GG, well played. Matt does claim it in the end. I also just realized that we are featuring almost purely TLMC maps. So we have Tokamak, we have Maganatha, Persephone, Torches. Great to see the new map pool underway. So I'm sure these would have been amazing matches to tune into. Meanwhile, we had Yanyaka versus Iba as well. Iba playing Protoss, going back to form, playing Protoss and playing Zerg in Game 1. In the end, Yanyakov, he is much more in form nowadays. He is looking very, very in form. Recently, of course, coming together with the team house. It was only for a week, but he did boot camp with a bunch of other players. Young Yakov, he was a part of that, and Young Yakov, he does claim the series 3-0. Big win for Young Yakov. Speaking of big win, Mindle VK Calm down, Poppy. Middle VK with the 3-0 over Baby Marine. Very impressive. Very impressive. Very strong performance there by Middle VK. Baby Marine, he is less active nowadays. That is true. But again, Middle VK, in my mind, he's more of a caster. He's casting, he's creating tournaments, he's streaming as well. Middle VK is playing 2v2s, he's playing StarCraft Evolution. He's not 100% focused on improving and competing as a player. So for him to take down Baby Marine, that's impressive. That's a big win. That's very impressive. So big shout out to Middle VK. Big shout out to someone who's again a good friend and also has allowed us to cover his events and cast his events and does show up in the chat from time to time. So big shout out to Middle VK. That leads us into the final show match. Cyril, he is a rare sight nowadays. Cyril, he does not compete very often. He typically reserves himself for these big events, online events and offline events. So to come back for a show match, exciting stuff. GG well played. Cyril, he does take down Classic 3-1. Cyril, he was of course the heavy favorite, but great to see Classic taking a map, and great to see Cyril once again competing in a show match like this. It's a rare sight. GG well played. Shout out to Cyril, shout out to Middle VK, Young Yakov, and Matt for claiming their wins. Congratulations. That also leads us into our next set of events. That leads us into the OSC tournaments here of the OSC Elite Rising Star and King of the Hill. So for the Rising Star, we have some updates here. Oh my god. As in a way to be expected, Jumi, he pops off. He takes down Iba 3-0. The drama continues here as Iba, he went down to, I mean, there's also drama in the previous series. Remember, Young Yakov was Iba's replacement. Like Jumi, after they broke up, Jumi, he ran to Young Yakov for some warmth, for some care, for some solace here in the arms of another Zerg player. And yeah, Iba, he's been having a hard time going down to Young Yakov, going down to Jumi as well. I'm waiting for the redemption arc. I'm waiting. It's coming, I'm sure. So Iba does go down. Meanwhile, Percival takes down Arts. Hormono takes down Nicorakt as well. And we do have the lower bracket quarterfinals on the horizon. Night Phoenix versus Percival, Middle VK versus Hormono. Coming into this, I do favor Hormono over Middle VK, but because of all these results we've been seeing, Middle VK, he's been getting some very strong results recently. We saw the 3-0 over Baby Marine, but even outside of that, like I feel like almost every week we give praise to Middle VK because it's like, oh, he's not playing full time anymore, but he's still getting good results. So I can't count him out. I cannot count him out. I have to give credit where credit is due. We'll see how far Middle VK can go. We'll see if he can bring down Hormono. Likewise, Percival also going to be another heavy hitter in this tournament as well. I mean, I think going along the lines of impressive results out of Middle VK, and look at this tournament. Mindle, he took down Percival 2-1. Like in the upper bracket, like he already got a good result there as well. I would say that Percival is one of the big names in this tournament to go for a deep run, and he was shut down very early on by Mindle VK. So potential rematch. Shout out to Night Phoenix, is also of course competing, is also there to try to stop and slow Percival as well. Best of luck. Best of luck to all the competitors. We'll have our next update next week, I'm sure. That leads us into the OSC King of the Hill Weekly number 207. That leads us here into that King of the Hill format. For those that are unaware, 15 best of ones. 15 best of ones back to back to back to back to back. They all face off one after the other. Winner stays on, loser is eliminated. And we didn't really have too much of a win streak here. Not too much. Sebestus, he takes down Mindle in the first round. Then goes down to GG Machine, then goes down to Luna C, then goes down to Milky Cow, then Milky Cow goes on a 2-game win streak over Percival, then goes down to Rebellion, then to Champ. we just trade back and forth. Cham, he had a bit of a win streak, but he got knocked out by Shameless. Shameless, he goes also on a bit of a win streak. It takes down Cham alongside Moja. Then Jumi steps into the ring, takes down Shameless. Jumi versus Iba once again in a PvP this time. Jumi takes down Iba's Protoss, and then Bjorn, he cleans it up towards the end. Bjorn over Jumi, over Geralt, over Christiana. Congratulations to Bjorn for becoming this week's King of the Hill and for going on the longest win streak. as that was only 3. Like the only player to get 3 wins in a row. Crazy. Again, it shows how close in skill all these other players are, how competitive all the players are as well. And of course, in the end, congratulations to Björn. And as those are some big wins towards the end as well. Over Jimmy, Geralt, and Cristiano, those are arguably some of the best Protoss players in Europe, just behind, you know, your Skillus, your Showtime, and your Max Packs. That's when you get Jimmy, Geralt, and Cristiano. It's a big win. GG. GG well played. That does wrap up the OSC King of the Hill. That leads us into our open tournaments. And there's a lot of results to jump into. First things first, we have this week's KSL, the Korean StarCraft League. Again, when it comes to supporting tournaments, Patreon is the place to be. !KSL in the chat. You will get a link to the Patreon page for the Korean StarCraft League, as we had a Hero popping off. Hero, fun facts, we actually confirmed this during the broadcast. Hero, he has won 100% of KSLs that he signed up for. In this year, in 2025, he has won every single KSL. Whenever he signs up, he wins. He wins 100% of the time. There is only one KSL this year that he hasn't won because he wasn't there. That was like 2 weeks ago. Like 2 weeks ago or so, he wasn't there at a KSL, so he wasn't able to win it. But every other KSL, Hero has just been dominating. And because of that, he was coming in as the heavy favorite. But a shout out to Dark. Dark, he did show up, he did rock up, he did compete. Again, Dark, he has not been very active as of late. Dark, he's going to his military soon. And fun fact, we thought that the last KSL was going to be his final KSL, but he did let us know. He did inform us after this tournament. He said, hey guys, just for solid confirmation, the next KSL in 2 weeks is his final KSL and his final tournament. Straight up. Final KSL, final tournament, KSL 74. That's gonna be it. And Dark, he even had a bit of fun with it. He said that this KSL was gonna be his last one and his last tournament, but he said that he said that he's angry that Hero won, and he can't let Hero get the final win. So Dark, he wants to come back next time. So he wants to come back in 2 weeks' time for the next KSL. And again, Dark, he did confirm that will be his final tournament. So much love to Dark. Much love to Dark. Again, we all know that his military service was on the horizon. That's why he left his team. He already announced that he was going to be retiring. And now we have confirmation of his final tournament. So much love to Dark. I hope to see him maybe in the future, you know, after a military service, you know, coming back to StarCraft, or coming back to StarCraft in maybe even another way than just competing. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Regardless, you know, Dark, he definitely is. I mean, right now even, I would say he's the best Zerg player. He's the best Zerg player in South Korea. Better than Shin, better than Rogue, better than Solar. Like Dark, he is the best. He's very much so in form. I would say he's top 3, if not top 2 Zerg player in the world right now. So it is a little bit sad to see him go. But yeah, you know, military service does come to all Korean players at some point, and it is Dark's time. Much love to Dark. And of course, he does at least get second place here again. I mean, this shows just how in form he is. Takes down Bunny 2-0 and Cure 2-0 as well. GG. GG, well played. With that leads us into our next tournaments. That leads us into the Platinum StarCraft 2 League April edition. This is a tournament that Rotterdam was covering. We did cover this last week, actually, talking about how the Platinum Heroes, it's a little bit bittersweet, but they, in a way, disbanded their pro roster. It was Goblin, right? Goblin, he left the Platinum Heroes. The Platinum Heroes, they are no longer going to be supporting their pro roster monetarily, and instead, they are pulling together their funds and hosting these monthly tournaments instead. So every month we do have a tournament like this. This is also limited to lower league players. I say lower league, it is limited to players that are 5k or less on a Ligulac. And we actually checked last week, and 3k, so I think it's a 5k, 3k or less on the Ligulac, and we checked 3k and above is top 4 players in the world. So there's actually quite a wide berth of players that can compete in this. Like top 10 players in the world won't be able to, but everyone else can. And I don't think people recognize that. Like, this tournament is open to quite a lot of players, actually. A lot of players are able to compete in this. Regardless, we had some good competition nonetheless. We had Young Yakov, we have Jumi, Nicarat, 3-Point, Goblin, Shameless, Geralt, Eba as well. We have our regular tournament heroes here when it comes to the European region, the European scene. In the end, Jumi claims the win over Young Yakov. It went all the way to the ace match, a banger of finals between these two players. They're both very close in skill, and they're both, of course, they put their heart out into it, and Jumi claims the win. GG well played. Congratulations to Jumi. Again, Jumi has been on fire as of late. Young Yakov as well. Do recommend the VODs. Again, it was all covered by Rotterdam. Here we go. That leads us into the WarTV Monday number 32, where we once again had, I would say, a bit of an upset here. Maybe not when it comes to the overall winner, but when it comes to the results. Coming into this, Clem, he broke his way through in towards the finals. He took down Björn, took down Harsum, took down Solar, but in the finals he did fall to Hero. But not how we would expect. Typically, we have a back and forth. You know, we have a game 4, we have a game 5, but here, Hero, he claims the 3-0. Very strong performance, very aggressive series as well. A lot of aggression. It was not long. At all. Some very short games, and Hero, he does claim the win. And Hero is this week's WarTV Monday champion. He took down Creator, Mana, and MaxPax to make it to the finals, where he took down Clem in that 3-0 series. So big win there for Hero. Again, Hero, of course, he is the, I would say he's the best Protoss player in Korea, but I feel like over the past couple of weeks, over the past couple of months, like Hero, he has been making the arguments more difficult when it comes to trying to argue that MaxPax is a stronger player overall. Like Hero, he's been getting some more and more wins over players like Clem, over players like MaxPax. Hero's been looking very impressive as of late. And I feel like now you can make a stronger argument that he could even be the best Protoss in the world over MaxPax. I feel like historically, like you could argue between the two of them. I think even still now, there's still like a blurred line between them. But like Hero, he's been looking very impressive as of late. But we'll see. We'll see how that all comes to pass when it comes to the upcoming offline events. When it comes to GSL, when it comes to events like Star Zagora, if he goes, and when it comes to EWC. So we'll see. Regardless, MaxPax, of course, he did a fun fact, actually. MaxPax, the only player to take a map off of Hero. True. He's the only player to take a map off of Hero, so again, shows how close MaxPax and Hero are when it comes to their skill. Regardless, congratulations to Hero. Congratulations. As that leads us into the Monday Night Weeklies number 14. This was later on in that evening. We did have Clem popping off once again. He was able to make it through here in towards that upper bracket finals. We had a lot of regular players from the previous tournament making their return. We had players like Hero, Clem, MaxPax, Solar, Bunny, Cure, Trigger. A lot of the players that did compete in the WarTV Monday, they stay up and they compete in the Monday Night Weekly as well. Here, MaxPax got his revenge. MaxPax, he took down Hero 2-0 in the upper bracket semifinals. MaxPax, he took down Clem 2-0. Very impressive. And then we did have our grand finals where it was a rematch between MaxPax and Hero. So Hero took down MaxPax 2-1 in the WarTV Monday. Here, MaxPax took down Hero 2-0 in the upper bracket. Then Hero took down MaxPax 2-1 in the rematch, and then MaxPax won that final series. It was 2 best of 3s back to back. So back and forth. Honestly, I'm really finding Hero versus MaxPax PvPs to be very entertaining. If you haven't watched them before, it is a really unique dynamic now where more often than not, Hero is out greeting MaxPax. More often than not, Hero, he's going for a more economic build, he's cutting more corners, and he's forcing MaxPax to react to him, which does cause a unique dynamic, one that we're not used to. Traditionally, it's MaxPax defending against all-ins in PvP. That is no longer the case. Now it is rare to see Hero all-inning MaxPax, and now it's more common to see MaxPax being aggressive against Hero. So it's really cool to see how the meta has shifted between the two players and how their PvP has evolved over time. So I do recommend it. If you haven't watched, I check out our VODs on YouTube or check out the VODs of some of these other streams. But their PvP has changed quite a lot. Yo, shout to Jimmy in the chat. Yo, let's go. Just notice the reverse sweep. Let's go. Este Jimmy. Ay. But yeah, it's great to see the evolution of their PvP. Likewise, congratulations to MaxPax for becoming this week's Monday Night Weekly Champion. Congratulations. That leads us here into the Pigastore Monday number 28. This was that morning, of course, and we actually have some missing players. Looks like some players did go to bed. So Clem, MaxPax, Hero, Solar, they got some rest. They went to bed. Some players didn't get some rest. Cure, he makes his return. He was able to take down Percival, SOS. Fun fact, Cure, he didn't drop a single map. Here in this broadcast. 2-0'd and 3-0'd everyone in his path. But this marked the return of SOS. SOS, again, we did go over his return previously in this show, talking about how SOS, he did announce he was looking for a team, and then bam, SOS, he shows up to compete in this week's Pigastore Monday. He had some mixed success. He looked quite strong against Davito and against Juanito as well, against Davo in special. He was actually playing very standard, actually. Like, SOS, he wasn't being hyper cheesy or aggressive. He wasn't proxying. He wasn't going for all-ins. I know that SOS has a reputation, but I feel like that reputation hasn't really been applicable to SOS over the past couple of years. Like when SOS was last competing in 2024 and in 2023, he wasn't hyper cheesy. He was more macro. He was more macro-oriented. He was more standard in his play. Personally, because of what we've seen from SOS over the past couple of years, it does feel like he's maybe set that more aggressive side of him like to the side and kind of been focusing on some more other forms of play. But it's too early to say, right? Like, this is SOS's return. He might return to form, to something more cheesy and something more aggressive. I would hope so. That's kind of what he built his brand on. We'll see. We'll see what happens with SOS. Regardless, Cure, he was looking much more dominant in his series against SOS, and even in the finals, that was a short one. If you watched it, I do recommend the VODs. It was a short one. A lot of cheese, a lot of proxies, a lot of aggression between Cure and Björn. I was most impressed by, I want to say, game 2. Yeah, there was a game on Tokamak, which it looked like Björn was going to take, but Cure, he was able to just drag himself back into it and have a crazy comeback. It was impressive. The Cure, he definitely had some impressive play on Tokamak. He was able to recover, able to bounce back, and everyone beyond. GG. GG will play a chat to Cure for claiming the win. That leads us into the Rex April Madness. That leads us here into our big online event. Rex, of course, he's a Taiwanese Zerg player. He's been hosting monthlies for the past 2 months. We initially had the March Madness. Now we have the April Madness. We just wrapped up the group stage last week, and now we just wrapped up the initial quarterfinals. That was yesterday. Last night, we covered the quarterfinals. Hero took down Zound 3-1. Rogue had a crazy performance against Clem. What I will say, if you watch that series, Clem was looking very timid. He wasn't really playing like himself. He was playing very standard, very economic, very safe. We're used to seeing Clem be very aggressive in this matchup. In TVZ, Clem going 1-1-1, 2-1-1, 360-2-1-1, Clem being in your face and Clem hitting strong timings. That's what we know from Clem. That's what he thrives on. That's what he's best at in that matchup. But in that series against Rogue, he was playing a lot more passive, and Rogue took full advantage of that. Like Rogue, he was embracing his mass lurker, mass nidus, mass overseer style once again, and Clem was having a really hard time stopping Rogue from getting there, from getting into that kind of maxed out position and maxed out army and slowing the game down to more of a crawl where Rogue could get more comfortable. Yeah, it was definitely a very different Clem that we're used to seeing. So maybe Clem was just practicing and trying out a different style. Maybe he's a little bit scarred from his last series against Rogue, so he was playing safer and more scared as a result. It's hard to say. But it's definitely not the Clem that we're used to seeing. Rogue did claim the win in the end. Solo took down Bunny 3-1, and MaxPax took down Classic 3-0 as well. GG. GG well played. With that, we have our top 4 players. We're going to be covering this tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be the semifinals. Hero, Rogue, Solar, and MaxPax. 2 Protosses and 2 Zerg players. To be honest, we'll see if anyone can stop the PvP finals. Like, I'm feeling Hero versus MaxPax. I know there's a lot of hype around Rogue right now. He looked good against Classic earlier in the show matches. He looked good here against Clem. But I'm concerned for Rogue against Hero. Likewise, I'm also concerned for Solar against MaxPack. So we'll see if anyone can stop the PvP. Otherwise, I'm leaning towards Hero versus MaxPack finals. Regardless, best of luck. Best of luck to our players. That leads us over into the Wardy TV Spring Championship at 2025. I believe we did just wrap up some of the groups, and we actually have another group that is currently ongoing. Group A, actually double checking here. Looks like we actually went over Group A last time. I think it was actually underway at the time. So Group A, we have Solar and Beyond. Solar and Beyond, they make it out of Group A. Very strong performance. My condolences to Creator and Mana as I recall this group was playing out as we were covering the podcast, and I remember we were hyped about Mana. I was hoping for that Mana would pull it off, but no, it was Solar and Beyond. Group B, Hero and Classic, they make it out in first and second place. I do recall this group. I believe I went for Hero and Bunny, and I think Yako went for Classic and Bunny. I remember we both went for Bunny. Like, we're both Bunny fans. We both wanted more Bunny. In the end, Hero and Classic do make it through. Group C, Trigger and MaxPax. Again, Dark, he has been a little bit more out of shape in recent times. I was leaning towards Cure and MaxPax, I believe. But Trigger in first place. He 2-0s Cure and he 3-0s Max. Trigger, calm down. Oh my god. Trigger, he 3-0'd MaxPax. We've been giving a little praise to Trigger before, and he has, I would say that Trigger's best matchup is PvP. We've seen Trigger take down Hero, Classic, and MaxPax as well. But for Trigger to 2-0 Cure, to me, that's almost more impressive. That was a big win there for Trigger, and of course to 3-0 MaxPax as well. Trigger, he is popping off. There's a reason why we were hyped about Trigger playing in GSL. Definitely a player to keep our eyes on. Also coming into EWC. So, yeah, very impressive results there from Trigger, and big win from our Canadian Protoss. MaxPax, he comes out in second place. Scrolling on over, we do have Group D. Group D is currently underway. We have Zaun, Showtime, Clem, and Rogue. Zaun just took down Rogue 2-1. Showtime took down Clem 2-1. Clem's been having a rough week. It's been having a rough week here, going down to Rogue, going down to Hero, here going down to MaxPax, and Hero going down to Showtime. So rough week here for Clem. Right now, Clem is mid-series against Rogue. I would hope to see Clem have a more aggressive style against Rogue. I'm honestly really curious to see how that plays out. Coming into this, I do still favor Clem, but again, we've seen Rogue take Clem down before. But again, I do feel like a lot of that was also predicated on how Clem was playing in his form. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see if Clem can get his revenge. We'll see if Rogue can repeat history and take him down again. Best of luck. Best of luck to our competitors here. Coming into this, I think, who did we favor? I think I went for Clem and Zaun, and I think Yako may have gone for Clem and Showtime. I can't quite recall, but regardless, best of luck to all the competitors in Group D. Again, Wardy, he's covering that group as we speak. That leads us over though into the Pigsty Festival number 6 qualifier number 1. And if you recall, we did have a portion of this broadcast where we were concerned about Estrella. We were concerned that he was going to be silently retiring, that he was silently just stepping away from the game, and that we wouldn't see Estrella at DreamHack Dallas, or that would be the tell, that would be the sign. He's back for the first time in a very long time, in months. Estrella, he has returned, takes down Shameless 2-1, takes down Geralt 2-1, and Estrella, he qualifies for the Pigsty Festival. Big win here for Estrella, and I'm happy to see him return. Again, both Yako and I, we were very concerned about not seeing Estrella in some of these tournaments and not seeing him at DreamHack Dallas, but clearly this marks his return. Now it's time to pick him up. Now it's time for Virtus Pro to re-sign him? Question mark? We'll see. We'll see. Regardless, very impressive results there by Estrella, and very happy to see him return. Percival takes down Young Yakov to the 0. Big win there for him, as did Full to Estrella. Meanwhile, Nice takes down Patches, takes down Epic, and Nice goes to the ace match against Creator. That is crazy. Creator, he was the clear favorite. But for Nice to go to the ace match, that is insane. Remember, Nice is retired. Nice, he's been retired for a year at this point. He's been gone from the game. He recently came back to play for fun. He recently has been streaming as well. He does not play full time. So for Nice to force the ace match is impressive. GG. GG, well played. Congratulations to both Creator and Estrella for qualifying for the Pigsty Festival. And there is going to be a second qualifier in the coming days. Tomorrow. So tomorrow there's going to be the second qualifier, so do keep your eye out for that. I'm sure it's going to be a lot of fun. I believe that's going to be taking place during the finals of the Rex April Madness. So we're going to be live covering the Rex April Madness. Meanwhile, Pig is going to be live covering the qualifier. So do look forward to that. Again, if you want to support StarCraft, if you want to support events like crowdfunded events like this, then do consider checking out Pig's channel and supporting the Pixel Festival. It is all crowdfunded, and you can help support the tournament yourself as well for the event. I should also emphasize this. I did say during the stream, I'll say it here as well. Congratulations to Pig. It was publicly announced a couple of days ago, and there's a reason why Pig, he was otherwise at times, preoccupied, or there were other things coming up. Pig, like many others now, he's gonna be a pappy. He's gonna be a pappy. Let's go, Pig and Dot. They're expecting. This was announced a couple of days ago. So congratulations to Pig. Congratulations to Dot. They did say that they didn't want to announce anything for the first trimester, just because sometimes things can happen and sometimes there can be complications. But that period has ended, and now it's more or less smooth sailings, and he was comfortable announcing it. So yeah, congratulations to Pig, congratulations to Dot, congratulations to the new family they're about to form together, and yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy, man. It's crazy. I believe that's also why they're going on vacation after Pixel Festival number 6. Pig did say that they were going to be Pig alongside Dot. They're going to be traveling, going on vacation for like a month. I believe that's part of the reason for it as well, just to take some time off to themselves, to rest, to recuperate, and to get ready for the family that they're about to begin together. So yeah, again, congratulations. Shout out to Pig, of course. We were giving praise and giving attention to sort of earlier for the wedding that was occurring, but again, Pig, he's now we have another pappy in the scene. Crazy. So GG will play. GG, yeah, sure. I'm just used to saying that. Congratulations to Pig, congratulations to Dot. That leads us though into the roundup of our events. We just wrapped up here with all the tournaments here of the week. And again, we'll keep you guys notified on any upcoming events as well. If you want to sign up for some of these tournaments, then check out the signups page. !signups in the chat. We do have links to the GSL qualifier, to the Turtle Tussle, Pig Sly Festival, StarCraft Evolution, and many, many other events, especially with the new EWC circuit, with the qualifiers for EWC, qualifiers for Bellum Gen's Stars Agora, GSL, Dallas, like everything is all there on the signups list. So if you're out there, if you want to compete, then consider checking it out on a more regular basis, because there are plenty of signups, plenty of tournaments going on. So do check it out here on the signups list. Likewise, if you want to help support us here on the CranKy Ducklings, we were giving praise to the crowdfunding of the Pigsty, the Patreon for GSL, the Patreon for RSL, the Patreon for KSL. We have our own. We have our own Patreon that we've been running for many, many years at this point for our own tournaments. Our tournaments aren't as extravagant. They're not as extravagant. They're not as funded as a Korean StarCraft League or an RSL or a GSL even. But regardless, we have our place here. We host our own tournaments for the amateur scene, for the pro scene as well. We do what we can. We host what tournaments we can. If you want to help support us, you can do so via Patreon. It's all there via Patreon. If you want to, you can. Otherwise, following us is all that we ask. Follow us, subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Twitch, follow us on social medias, join our Discord, tune into the CranKy Ducklings, and that's the least that we ask. If you want to go that step further, you can. Otherwise, thank you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. Shout out to Yaku, by the way. Yaku, of course, like many of us, a little bit sleep deprived and getting some rest, getting some food. Thank you so much to Yaku for joining me for the first half for the news segment. And again, he'll be here with me next week as well, going over the rest of the news in StarCraft in the next PondCast. And again, shout out to Kuro as well for also producing, for being behind the scenes, making sure everything runs smoothly, working on the overlays, working on the assets. Big shout out to Kuro, big shout out to Yaku. With that, And with that, we are going to be wrapping up. I guess another thing to briefly announce that I should have mentioned earlier regarding the Big Brain Bouts is that I will be playing in one of the future Big Brain Bouts. I don't know which one. I don't know if it's going to be this week or next week or the week after that. I'm still not certain as to what's going to be happening, but I do know that I'll be a part of one of them in the near future. And because of that, I've been streaming on a regular basis. This week I started streaming and laddering almost daily, getting back into form. I'm very out of shape when it comes to StarCraft. I rarely get to stream and rarely get to ladder. I only ever ladder on stream, and I rarely get to stream because we're casting all the time. Because we're casting twice a day, every single day. We don't often have time or much time to stream and to spend time doing other things other than casting. But I've been specifically trying to. I've been foregoing sleep. I've been foregoing sleep in favor of laddering, and it's been a lot of fun. We have actually been improving quite a lot, or at least shaking off all the rust, and I hope to be in form for the Basilisk Big Brain Bout show match. Again, I don't know who I'm going to play against. I don't know when it's going to be, but eventually it'll happen, and I'll be ready for it. Let's go. I will be ready for it so you can follow my endeavors when it comes to laddering, when it comes to improving on my own personal channel. Otherwise, check out some more StarCraft content here on the CranKy Ducklings. Check us out covering all the tournaments. Again, our schedule is jam-packed. Our next broadcast is going to be in around 10 hours time with the Tenacious Turtle Tussle. That's going to be again in around 10 hours time. Likewise, we have the Rex April Madness tomorrow. We have StarCraft Evolution League, King of the Hill on Friday, and even more content over the weekend. So plenty of StarCraft, plenty of content here on the channel. Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Do check us out on Discord or on YouTube, Twitch, your preferred platform. Do follow us. Otherwise, we'll see you guys tomorrow for some more StarCraft action, or next week for the next PondCast. Again, join with myself, Yakozaku, and Kura. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Ciao. Ciao, baby, ciao. Hasta luego.